right, Shalom, peace, peace, peace. Come on in. I'm thankful and grateful to have another opportunity to be in front of you one more again. I will be showing myself in just a little bit, just trying to at least get everything started. A lot of moving parts today. Okay. Oh, whoops. Oh, no, we got it. All right. Praise Yah. How is everyone? Hopefully you're doing well. Shabbat Shalom, if you're using the Hebrew calendar. If not, early Shabbat Shalom to you. All right. Prayerfully all is well with everybody. Thank you for your patience. Merci. Patient. All right, let's go ahead and get into this. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of mine heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer, and it is in His name, which is His authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect today's lesson, today's message. Amen. Hola, mi nombre es Kofi. ¿Cómo está? Bonjour, je m'appelle Kofi. Ça va? Ni hao, namaste, osayo nikitawaya, Ohio. I see you, minut, wagwan, kimsa, kamsamida, aloha, ciao, ensemble. Habarigani, Akwaba, Madase, etc. Jambo. Mimini Kofi, Ninifaraku Katana the Wewe, Boker Tov, Boker Tav, greetings, grand risings, salutations, all that great stuff. Welcome, welcome. Bakwar Tav, Shabbat Shalom, Barakalat Sham Yehava, Nai Kovai, Kovai, Khelit, at servants of Christ, Mashalam Chi, Teda, Yahada Sha'el, Shema, Yahada Sha'el, at Zara, at Yahava. Shalom, everybody. Peace. I am Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time, but being the voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. We appreciate your presence today. Thank you for joining us. How's everybody doing on all the different platforms? We're grateful, or on all the social, what is it I have to call it again? The virtual spaces, so that we don't have them trying to remove us and rip us down. So thank you for being on all these different virtual spaces today. Prayerfully, mic check real quick before we jump in. We're already running a little bit late. Can everybody hear me? Mic check, 1, 2. Microphone checker, 1, 2 checker. Yes, no, maybe so. Prayerfully you can hear us on all the different platforms, out in familiar surroundings. Yes, alrighty. Cool, cool, cool. Yes, yes. Con, si, we, where. All right, thank you so much. Alrighty, so look, we're gonna go ahead and get into today. Kind of, sort of, not really a part 2 to yesterday. Those of you on yesterday, we had a lot of information, and I don't know how successful I was in being able to give it to you the way that I felt it and the way I received it. Prayerfully, it came off correctly. Got some more information to give to you all today, and so prayerfully this will be a little better, a little more. I was very excited, and I was back officially, and I've been back a couple days before, but I was back. I guess I was maybe a little overexcited, but I pray that prayerfully the message got across the way it needed to yesterday. We're going to get ready to do our Bible pledge. So if you can, reverence Yahweh's word and stand into your feet. We thank you for doing so, or however you can reverence the word with us. Be careful, obviously, if you're on the job, work, travel, stuff like that, dealing with the children in the shower. You have to say those things, unfortunately, because persons sometimes get excited about this word like we do, and we're not trying to have you hurt yourself or anything like that. So make sure your surroundings and everything are fine, or that you can, in fact, do it. Or if you just do it in your mind, we thank you for that as well. But much love to everybody. Real quick, Feast of Tabernacles. If you're able to stay into the end on the shout out, Feast of Tabernacles, we'll make sure that we have a, at least if we have no, well, either way, I'll try to do a shout out if we can. And I will make sure that I show we have the shirts ready to go for Feast of Tabernacles, whether you're coming virtual or physically. So if you'd like to get a shirt, or however many shirts you can, or if we're able to work something out to help you with those shirts. But we have those ready now. We have them in white and red, and white and orange, is it? Or gold and orange or something like that. But they look very nice. Brother Jermaine put some work into it and has it together. So, and he has them not only when I'm gonna show you that if you were on for the shout out. I'll try to post it in different times and different places on Patreon, YouTube, different sites, etc. later on, TikTok, etc. But if you're on the shout out for today on TikTok, you'll be able to see them. I only have the pictures of the short sleeve today, but he does. He's talking about having them ready for in long sleeve and in hoodies, right? And especially because it'll be a little chilly some of those days. Please feel free to have them on. We'd like for everybody, if you do get them, to have them on the first day and the last day, so that'll be October 6th and October 13th. That being said, even though we would like both for you to have it on October 6th and October the 13th, if you don't come those days or you're not there those days, you can feel free to wear them when you get there or whatever. And we'll try to have some where we can wear some or have some different stuff in solidarity and stuff like that. Working on maybe even having a little flag together. So we got a lot of moving parts going to this. But hopefully you'll be able to support not only Brother Jermaine, but also us as we get ready to come together as the SOC family across the world and physically in Georgia. But Tada, Maisha Pachi, thank you everybody for being on. No, so I'm not sure. I saw some text last night. I guess because I had said we're going to try to bring back the Thursday SOC community meeting. This week it has to be moved to Saturday. At the same time, we're going to do our watch party. I will record the meeting part though, so even if you miss it, you'll still be able to get what's going on. And then on Monday evening, every Monday evening, we'll be having our Feast of Tabernacles meetings. So if you'd like to participate in those, whether you're coming virtually or physically, you'll get information and know what we're trying to do, know what we're asking for, know the times, know the schedule. I'll actually have some procedures that will have a schedule up ready to go, even though it'll just be a draft, but we'll have all that ready to go by Monday. Okay? So prayerfully we'll have all that together and you'll be able to join us. But Tada, thank you so much. We appreciate you. Can we do a 360 with the camera? Okay, somebody said, can we show different places on the camera? I'm not going to do a whole 360. I'll let you, because I got it. This setup is crazy work for me. So we have multiple virtual spaces going at the same time. So if you want to look in front of me, what I'm seeing in front of me, that's cool. Maybe at the end, we have done before. Those of you who've been with us in a while, this spot is somewhat familiar to you. And so you've seen me do a walkthrough of this, so who knows. But today I'm looking pretty much just to do a shout out, a normal shout out like we do. But Tadah, Maisha Pache, thank you so much. We appreciate you all. Thank you for being with us. We're going to go ahead and jump right into this message. And if there's any other questions, comments, or concerns concerning the message, or even concerning some other stuff, you can maybe wait to the end or just wait during the message. I will do my best to get back to you. Also, too, if you ever want any more information, if you're on the virtual space that I'm looking at, I can't mention the spaces because they're trying to take us down now when we mention other platforms. So if you're at this virtual space I'm looking at right now, if you look in the description with the video, we have our link tree. And if you give time, once the video uploads after about 24 hours or so, that expands to a whole bunch more information. If you ever want to get more information, to gather more information about what we do. And Facebook, I just mentioned the platform. I hope I don't get in this virtual space I'm looking at, look in the description. In this virtual space I'm looking at, look in the description. I got to be careful because yesterday we couldn't start for a long time because they literally limited how many persons could see us in this virtual space because I mentioned it's because I mentioned somebody else, another space, or because we had our Feast of Tabernacles information up. So I have to be careful. So when I say virtual spaces, and yet another thing you have to get used to me saying without saying, if I say virtual spaces, just know that I'm talking about depending on which space you are in. Okay? Alrighty. So praise God. Let's go ahead and get started. We'll say our Bible pledge and jump right in. Thank you for your patience. We're going to be in very similar territory to yesterday. By the way, Patreon family, we did in fact have our introduction yesterday. So those who are part of hashtag SOC University, you'll be having your introduction to what's going to be the series for you guys, and it's going to be saved the hashtag SOC University tier. So you can always go back there and look if you're ever interested in becoming part of SOC University and getting these lessons and be able to go back through years and years and years of classes on your own, as well as from time to time being able to have live sessions, live classes, and then also too be able to reach out with questions, comments, and concerns. Feel free to just simply contact us and let us know, and we'll make sure that we get you connected. Amen. Alrighty, alrighty. Okay, so let's go ahead. We'll say our Bible pledge, and we should jump right in. You can just repeat after me. This is my Bible. This is my sword, and this will I trust. For Yahshua is Lord. No sword of God shall ever be heard. For this is my Bible, and this is Yah's word. Hacham Yahweh. Amen. His name is authority. Let it be done unto us. You may be seated to go back to what you were doing in the presence of the Most High Yah. I apologize. I am a little bit out of order. I did not say shalom or peace to everybody. So let's do that real quick and let's jump right in. How you doing, Elder Anais, Minister Samaya Lorraine, Brother Keith, Cultural Prospects, Sister Carla, Brother Alton, Fahad, Sister Beck, G, or well, somebody got rid of G was saying some stuff. All right, how you doing? Said speak up, I can't hear. Well, this is the most I'm gonna be able to speak up. So thank you for being on. If that's too much for you, I apologize. You just have to go somewhere else. Thank you for being on. How you doing, Tabitha? How you doing, Big Brother Charles? One who whispers. It feels like it's been a little bit of time since I last saw you, so hopefully all is well. Akut Debarach. Let's see, King D252, TJ. Let's see. Not to be confused with Brother TJ, Angelic Discipline, but TJ. Judgment. Thank you for the love. Jennifer, Roland, Eddie, EDDY, Michelle, Chemist, Zaytoven, Marvelous, Tony Official, Kiki, Water King, and thank you for the love. Name of the Most High is Yahweh, Elacham, or well, Yahweh, his title, Elacham. He was known before that as Elacham Sheta'ain until Moses is asked what is his name in Exodus chapter 3, Exodus 3:14. He said, doesn't say I am that I am. It actually translates to it is what it is. In other words, you are here in the spot. You've seen what I do. You've seen my miracles. You know what your people are looking for. That being said, he says his name in verse 15 when it says Lord God. Whenever you see that, that means Yahweh Elacham. He was known by title as Elacham and what he did as Shaddai, but his name is Yahweh. And welcome to you. Great question. How you doing, Brother Javon? How you doing, Keith? Apple user, Lottie Dottie, and everybody, thank you so much for being on. Everybody said they can see and hear all right, so I'm going to go with that for now. If we have to go back and forth signal-wise, we'll try and do our best to, but right now it looks like we are doing well with this setup, so we're going to go with what we have. How you doing, Empress? Zoo Cashmo? Everybody, we appreciate you. Thank you all for the love. Thank you for any likes, shares, subscription, hitting the notification tab. Thank you for joining us. Your views and everything mean a lot to us. Thank you for anybody who does so much stuff, whether in front of the camera, behind the scenes, on the staff, just part of our family, around the world. Yes, even your time, talent, effort, energy, your resources, and yes, even that includes some of you give money that help us as far as donation to continue to do the things that we do worldwide. And so we cannot exist without you. We're thankful for you. We appreciate you once again. All right. Today, we are going to talk specifically from the title of How Romantic Are You? How romantic are you? Once again, how romantic are you? Okay. Now, when we say romantic, let's make this clear because many of you, because of how language has changed or persons only focus on certain things, and we've been very hypersexualized as a community, as a society, and even those who say they're followers of the way in the kingdom, right? When you hear me say romantic, many of you go to a place of candlelit dinners. Many of you go to a place of is Boys to Men playing, or for some of you maybe is it um, Fleetwood Mac, or is it Zaytoven, whoever's name was up with that? Is it Aretha Franklin? Is it Patti LaBelle? You know, is it Nat King Cole, whatever your stuff is, right? Is it Chris Brown, Chris Breezy? Is it Busta Rhymes with Janet Jackson, or Busta Rhymes with Mariah Carey? You know, all this different stuff or whatever. Persons look at Roman, but we are talking about being Roman, as in the culture of Rome, right? As in even Roman antics, right? How you doing, Minister Morel? Right? We are looking at the culture of Rome. How you doing, Sister Jennifer? If I didn't say so already, Sister Jennifer Connolly. So the culture of Rome is still present, and just like the culture of Greece is still present, because there's no Rome without Greece. And before Greece, the culture of the Medes and the Persians is still present, because without the Persian Empire, the Greeks don't even come together as a society, and then right, and they don't even become who they are. But before them, you have to deal with Babylon. So when we talk about Rome, obviously it doesn't just stop with Rome, but a lot of persons don't even know that the reason you guys are so into Latin is because that the Romans were actually called Latins. They were part of a group of persons that existed called Latins. And they were in between the Etruscans, right? And in between the Greeks. These are things that we don't know. And so we want to talk about how much, and obviously, of course, we're coming through a very biblical spiritual lens. The prism has to be correct, just like we talked about last night, by the way. If you're not aware, we started our Malachi series that was asked about, so we're going to be doing that in the evening. So if you'd like to keep up with that series, that's the series we're doing in the evenings on Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays until we finish through chapter 4, right? But they were called Latins. Like you say, somebody can speak Latin, or there's Latin languages, or somebody says they're Latino, where they were a group of persons that lived in an area called Latins. And Rome, in its beginning, is actually, at least, we don't really know what their beginnings are. If we keep it, because they're so into, now we're talking about the beast and spirituality, we know what their beginnings are. But as far as their actual physical persons, it's very difficult to say who they are, because there's so much mythology. It's always interesting, by the way, they talk about the Bible being mythology, or they talk about, Afrocentric mythology. As a matter of fact, they had us at one point thinking that Timbuktu, when I was growing up, if somebody mentioned Timbuktu and Mali and all this stuff, I actually thought that it was a myth within itself, because, we didn't think that our people actually had the ability to do much of anything, if I just be honest with you, the way I was raised. That being said, though, Rome's mythology is so thick and so strong, and they come out of Greece, and the Greeks are very much so about mythology as well. That basically, man makes up everything about them, and to the victors go the spoils. So it's very difficult to find the beginning of how they actually started. We know that they were the area they lived in, and we know the people they come out of. And so the reason why they hold Latin up as a huge deal language-wise is because they were part of a group of persons who spoke Latin, because they come from people called Latins. So if you're somebody who speaks Latin language, that is something that was spread by Rome, because it was a small group of persons in between the Etruscans and the Greeks. And what happened is the Etruscans and the Greeks would trade back and forth. And so their trade routes took them through this little territory that eventually starts off what we call Rome. And Rome, it eventually grows, and they start taking over other territories and taking their stuff, right? Now, the Etruscans are people we really don't know much about. We kind of sort of know about their language. We know, that they were affected by the Greeks, who got their language from. If you know how this goes, it was the it was a Canaanite slash Israelite who used the alphabet, or the alphabet, to ensure that he helped Greece when they needed a new language to come together with it. And if you don't know that, if you don't think that that's something that's actually countries do more often than you might think, that happened with Russia. What we know as Russian language today was put together by Alexander Pushkin, who was the grandson of a slave. We talked about him yesterday. The grandfather of a slave called Gannibal. And Gannibal himself was a slave taken from West Africa to Russia, was put in the Russian household to be a slave of the czars, or the emperor, whatever his name, whatever his title was at the time, to be under him and to be his son's slave. And then he became so great at being a slave, and became so great in his Stockholm syndrome, he becomes adopted into the Russian family, as far as the literal royal family. and his son will become the greatest poet in Russian history, and will literally reshape and come together with a language that's better for Russians, and so that's how they speak today. So if you can have, and by the way, his father's name, so the father is Gannibal, right? Close to the name Hannibal, right? Same kind of culture, thought process. So the father is Gannibal. His son is Abraham, which is Abraham's original name. Abraham, before he became Abraham, father of many nations, he was first Abraham, or Abram, as many people say today, persons say today. So you have Abram, right, who is the right Hebrew name, who is then gives birth to who, right? Alexander Pushkin. So these are persons that are very important in Russian structure and Russian thought process. How you doing, T's 2 cents, right? So a lot of persons aren't aware that stuff like that happens quite a bit, and that we have shaped languages as slaves around the world and stuff like that, as we were scattered and not knowing who we are. Persons coming and getting us as Negroes, not just always as Africans, right? So so the same kind of thing happens here with Rome, to where Rome eventually takes over Greece, and we know that Greece was not only affected by this alphabet change, which is where they get the alphabet from, but Greece also, if you know the story of history and you know the story of your Bible. Now, once again, you got to go and read outside of just 66 books. But if you read into, forgive me, what is it? Maccabees, Maccabees, right, which we call Maccabees, which is Maccabees, or Maccabe is actually the name of the person who helped to not start the war but kept it going. His real name is actually Yehovah, or Judah, but he's known as Maccabe. Maccabe means the handle. So a lot of you might not know that a guy who was named Judah, who's nicknamed the handle, is where you get this thing called Maccabees. Right, so if you're talking about Maccabees, you're talking about the handle, right? That's what you're talking about. And it was because of the war that happened, and the Greeks who were taking over the world, right, so to speak. The Greeks come into Israel, and they start trying to force Israel to do everything against the Most High, including even offering up pigs. Right? I'm just going somewhere. We're setting some foundation. I promise you we can get into this romantic stuff. But this all is romantic, because this is what Rome comes out of. Rome gets a lot of their information is shaped by this. So we have to be aware of this, right? So so Rome so so Rome, I'm sorry, Rome is growing. Greece is a world power. Israel is fighting against Greece. And by the way, by ourselves, we defeated Greece. How you doing, Notice Reality? So by the way, by ourselves, we actually defeated Greece. But like the Bible says that we'll do, because we have a cursed mentality, we signed up with, basically contractually treaties with somebody who was already our enemy, hoping that the enemy of our enemy would be our friend, hoping that the Romans would help us fight the Greeks. The Romans, once they get bigger, not only do they defeat the Greeks, they come in, they defeat us, and then they put Greeks who we had defeated and asked them to help us to fight. They come in and they actually put these Greeks in charge of us again, which is where you get persons like Herod. Herod, who is half Hebrew, half Greek, but lives as a Greek. And they put Greek on the throne. I'm sorry, they put a Greek on the throne, or somebody who had the Greek mentality, the nationality in his head. They put this Greek slash Hebrew person, who really was a Greek, that put him on the throne in Israel to ensure that things would be run the way they needed them to be run, right? And that we would be running things with a Greco-Roman or Romantic value system, which is how now, when Christ is crucified, not only does it say who he is in Hebrew, but you'll see that it says who he is in Greek, and it says that he is in Latin above his head. This is how this happens, because of all this romanticized stuff, right? So a lot of persons don't realize that's why the Roman culture is so heavily implied and talked about and thought about in Scripture, because those who are romantic are actually those who have put a very Greco-Roman thought process into your place, into your people. And how you doing, babe? My wife is on, the Honorable Alma. Love you, babe. Thank you for being on. Please check her out at, if you're on TikTok, at Bloom and Flourish, Maya Ofori. Or I guess here I see Bloom and Flourish 3. So, but please check her out and watch her videos, like her stuff, help her to build this stuff back up. We appreciate you for doing so, right? He said he and his father were warriors, most definitely. How you doing, Sister Michelle? So so these are things that we see, and a lot of persons don't know how romantic you are, right? How much, how intrinsic. We don't even, when we read Mattathiah, or well, look at the modern, or it's Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, we don't recognize how much romanticism is being fought against. If a ism, by the way, ISM just makes it a system. So a romantic system or a Roman system is being put in place, and we're not supposed to live by a Roman system. We're supposed to live by Yahweh's system. This is why you have questions that are asked, right? What laws? What's the number one law we should live by? Because we're having issues. Should we follow their legalese or our laws, right? What kind of who do we belong to? The kingdom of heaven, right? Blessed are those who are poor in spirit, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to them. Well, we were told that we belong to Rome. You're saying we still belong to the kingdom? Doesn't feel like it, right? Hey, should we pay taxes to Caesar? Should we pay tithes and offering? Render what Caesar Caesar's, but give unto Elohim what's his. It's a very romantic. There's a centurion guard who knows how kingdom works, and he says he knows how kingdom works because he knows how it works with Caesar, but he believes him to be greater than Caesar. You're having a conversation with Rome, or about Rome that's taking over. We don't read it through that prism, right? We don't look at it through that lens. We're not thinking about it that way. How you doing, Brother Dwayne? Mindful Moments. Thank you, moderators. Y'all are on it again as usual. Daywalker need to do better. I'm sorry, I missed that one. The trolls are coming in. They're not what they need to be. They're not on the level they need to be on. Appreciate you. Hey, look, it's interesting. It's like the third person to call me Bob Marley in what, the last 2 days or something. You got to, once again, trolls. Y'all got to do better. Just because I'm black and I have locks, right? I enjoy Bob Marley. If somebody were to say that they look up to me like a Bob Marley figure, I find honor in it, outside the way he treated his wives or his women. Yeah, but you know, as far as the music stuff and what he represents to his people, I mean, I'm cool. You know, how you doing, Sister Judith? So, once again, we're in this position. We're in this place. We're in this mindset to where, once again, persons are so romanticized, and they're using Roman antics. They don't realize what it is, right? So we want to go through some of this stuff historically today. If you notice, the last few times I've been with you, we've been on some historical, so we usually are, but heavy, history. As we teach our preachers, there's several different styles and ways of preaching. One of the ways that we actually can focus in on, outside, hermeneutics, homiletics, apologetics, and stuff. One of the things we can do is also look at things contextually, as far as topical preaching and geographical and things of that nature, archaeological, but also too we can talk about historical, or what they call history. We're gonna talk about our story, the story, but his story backs up a lot of what I'm about to talk about too. Okay, so today we're gonna focus in on, once again, how romantic are you? Because, and once again, let me just make this clear: I'm not talking about the romance that allows you to go on a date, court, because that's really not romance. The only reason you call that romance is because the Roman society is so embedded in your mind and in your brain that your mindset thinks that if you don't do things the way that Rome says do, right? And we talked about this even yesterday, right? Why is it that some of you believe that a kiss is romantic when before there was a such thing as Rome, persons kissed? Why do you think that eating dinner is romantic when there are persons that ate dinner together plenty of times before, right? You see what I'm saying? So, it's very weird behavior. It's very weird thought process. We don't think twice about saying that in order for us to have relationships that are valuable, we have to actually be Roman, right? And you have to realize that even a lot of these sayings that take place, what do you say? You say, when in Rome. Somebody finish this for me in the chat. Somebody finish this in the chat for me. When in Rome, what are you supposed to do? And if you're in Rome, if you don't realize you're in Rome, you might not already realize you're doing this. But the saying goes, when in Rome, do what? Do as the Romans do. Come on, right? That's right. You see, we've heard this before, but we don't think about, are we in Rome, and are we still doing what the Romans do? When in Rome, do what the Romans do. When in captivity, do what your oppressors do. When in chattel slavery, act like a slave. When in racism, uplift racism. When when dealing with perverted ways of looking at sexuality, be perverted. Your rebuttal is no. You see, but that's what that means. You have to know what Romans are, what Romans do. How you doing, Sister Taylor? How do Romans treat their children? Because they went in Rome. So if you're talking about how you're going to treat your children, you got to ask the question, how do Romans treat their children? If your child goes to romantic schools, if your child goes to a romantic school, right? Think about it now. If your child is going to school in Rome, when in Rome, they should be what? We got somebody cutting your ass. Okay, I don't know if the person's working with me or not working with me. I apologize, y'all. Let's do a salah right there. When in Rome, do what the Romans do. I'm going to move over a little bit. I'm going to see. So hold on a second. I don't know. We'll see. We'll wait for him to tell me I got to move. I don't know what's going on. But hopefully you guys can hear me. Right, but when in Rome, we do what? We do as the Romans do. How you doing, Pearl? When in Rome, we do as the Romans do. That's what supposedly you're supposed to do. So you have to ask yourself, if you're in Rome, you said, who did the Romans oppress? Okay, Julius Caesar. How many Gauls did he kill? You see what I'm saying? And by the way, don't do this whole thing of, oh, it was just war and they were fighting back and forth. No, it wasn't. He went in there illegally. He just took over enough with enough power to where he could get away with it. But he went in there illegally. Remember, he marches back into Rome with an army against the law, but they can't do anything to him. See, this is why we have to make sure that person's... I'm here for a minute. I can leave to wherever.
No, I mean, you was down there. I'm cutting this last. So you can do you. Yeah, I'm cutting this last.
I don't mind if you need. I can move and then just move right
no,
back.
I'm cutting this last.
Okay, I probably because I come here from time to time and I know y'all do. I thought I was thinking it's another mistake. I thought it was already.
Yeah, cut the last.
Yeah, so and then I realized when I got here,
yeah, man, don't keep everything there, right? I mean, I'm cutting this last.
Okay,
right?
like I said, I'm be here. I could be here for a while or a short time.
I can cut up stuff too. So I mean, this.
Okay. All I'm saying is, I know you got a job to do. So if you give me a signal, and thank you for working with me. If you give me a signal, I promise you,
I'm cool.
I can just leave.
You can be here for a while, man. I can cut there up stuff too, man.
Appreciate it. Okay, so where was I at? Where was I at? What I was saying? Oh yeah, the person who was on here. So we were talking about yesterday. Same thing came up. We were talking about Stalin and Hitler and Mussolini and Leopold, and somebody came on and they are defending it. And it's like, how are you going to defend it, right? How are you going to defend it, right? You know, these persons do these things. So we say Rome oppresses persons. Now, once again, to the victory goes the spoils. Those who want to be very romantic, right, are all over the place. But the Gauls were eradicated, right? Like genocide. Today, right? Matter of fact, see, you're so romantic. When you're still doing this stuff in Africa and Asia, you're still in Vietnam. You're still in Japan. We don't talk about this. Japan, maybe not as much because the Japanese bow down enough to where y'all don't have to off people, but you're still in Vietnam. Matter of fact, before the Vietnamese War, see, this is how romantic persons are. Before the Vietnamese War or the Vietnam War, persons think that, oh, that just happened in the 60s and 70s. Eisenhower was in Vietnam. Woodrow Wilson was dealing with stuff in Vietnam. During World War II, they were in Vietnam. Right? Matter of fact, the CIA and the beginnings of the CIA were working with the French because Vietnam actually belonged to the French. This is why some of you might not know this, but if you do some research or you have a Vietnamese friend, if you just have a Vietnamese friend, right, depending on your age, ask them if their mother and father or their grandmother and grandfather, ask them if they speak French. Matter of fact, ask them if they speak French and if they look up to it. It's like if you go to certain African countries, they'll tell you, oh, it's so great that you speak French, and they'll say you're so cultured. It's not that you're so cultured. These persons are so oppressed that they believe that speaking the language of their oppressor, it actually makes them more cultured than speaking their own language. You see what I'm saying? So when somebody says, how is it that somebody's oppressed? It's because you are so romanticized, or we've been so romanticized, we don't even think, wait a minute, genocide is going into Africa and wiping out a whole group of persons and then calling yourself Afrique and then saying that everybody who's part of that continent has to now be known as Africans. The Greeks did that and the Romans did that. We just go, oh no, that's war. No, the Gauls were not at war with the Romans. The Romans came into their territory, right? And and Julius Caesar specifically, off at least, this is all they'll tell you. They'll just say it was at least 1 million Gauls. Now somebody says, well, that's not as much as some. If you say that, that's crazy word. So I'm just gonna head you off there because I hear that quite a bit. But then realize that there were not as many persons on the earth back then as there are today. Which means that 1 million back then could be like 10, 15, 20 million today in an area. And by the way, what was the area of the Gauls? Do you know about the Rubicon? Right? Do you know about the rivers? Do you know about the fact that he went over into Britain and that he went all the way? Oh, do you know how far east he went? You know that how far north he went? He went to the ocean up north in Europe, right? Or what we call Europe. Wasn't even called Europe back then, right? But he went all the way up. He went into parts of Asia. He went into Africa, and he did this illegally. Persons were so against what he was doing that even Roman senators, who they themselves couldn't wait for their turn to be in charge and be warlords and stuff like that, even they were like, yo, you tripping. He even went back into Rome and conquered Rome. He was so strong by then, he didn't have to conquer them with the sword, right? He was so strong by then, all he had to do was walk back in with his army. But you know him walking back in with the army, no army is ever supposed to walk back into Rome. So he broke the law to come back in there, but he was so powerful they couldn't stop it. That's why Caesar technically is never an actual emperor, or at least the way you think of an emperor, even though he really is the first one. Right? He gave himself the title emperor, by the way. Emperor means basically like the head, like the head inward in charge. He basically, when you call him emperor is what, like, you know how us in our diaspora had to look up to somebody else and say massa or master? Well, guess what? Emperor was what slaves called their masters. So by the time you get to this title emperor, anybody who addresses anybody who's up high, you're considered to be a slave. And you don't think about that in Rome because you don't even realize in the United States of America, if you're in debt, anybody in debt is a slave. No, he said he's going to use these. It's fine. I apologize. If I'm not loud enough, I'll try to get louder. He's working with me. Trust and believe. I promise you he's working with me because he's just going to use this. He's going to come here last. He's got a bunch of other places, but he's going to do this and try to stay on schedule and come back around last. So he's working with me. I'm sorry if it's too much noise. It should go away in a little bit, and if he comes back towards the end, I'll be prepared to go somewhere else. I'm looking at where he's cutting anyways, so I might leave earlier to just go somewhere right after he cuts it, and that way he can continue to do his thing. All right? How you doing, Sister Shalom? Shalom, everybody. Peace. So hopefully you can hear me. All right, you can? All right. So I do apologize, but he's working. I trust and believe he's working with me. I've had other persons who have literally, as I've been on here, just basically come through and almost messed up all of our setup a couple of times. So I promise you, he's working with me best he can. He's got a job to do. I understand it. So, and thank you for that, though. If it becomes too much, I'll try to get through it another time. But I'm saying, or get through it another way. But I'm saying all this to say, as far as back to the Roman thing, a lot of persons don't realize how Roman it is to go and say that you've discovered a people while committing genocide to a people, wiping some of these groups off the map. Hey, Benson, that's the best you got? That's really corny. Once again, tell me trolls. Do better. I've been doing this. I've been getting called way worse, like outright if you're gonna say some stuff about my hair because of, how coarse it is and how really I think how beautiful and amazing it is. I've been dealing with stuff way worse than that. You got to come better with your ad hominem. All right. If you want to stick around, you're more than welcome to, unless the moderators say different. But more than likely, you're somebody that's a troll and just needs to go somewhere, right? But even in that, that's romantic. Like Romans literally would make fun of the persons and say that they were nothing before they would conquer them, right? This is the mentality of Rome. So when we say somebody's romantic, right? When somebody's romantic, we're talking about Roman antics. We're talking about this little, and I need you to comprehend this little group, just like persons say all the time. How is it that, one little place like England has it at one point to where they say the sun never goes down in their empire? It's not because this group is more powerful. It's because we are willing to allow somebody else to tell us that they are more cultured than you. Right? It's very Afrocentric. It's very so-called Middle Eastern, even though it's really the same people. It's very Native American to a certain extent. I know it's not always. How you doing, movement views? But it's very natural for persons to say, I would like to learn about somebody who's different than myself. But one thing that has happened with us is that we have said, I want to learn about others because they're better than me. This is what causes stuff like systemic oppression to continue to rear its ugly head. Due to the fact that what? Due to the fact that we are under a spell, if you will, that tells us that somebody's better because the college is named after them. But that's just a name, right? Like we talked about, for those who are part of Patreon, we just did this, and those who are going to be hashtag SLC University, we're going to go deeper and deeper, even than what we did yesterday. But a lot of cats don't know. They're not they don't realize. Thomas Jefferson, known for starting the University of Virginia, went to William and Mary, was it William and Mary Baldwin or William and Mary, whichever? Forgive me, babe. William and Mary, right? He's somebody who writes the Constitution or writes the Declaration of Independence. He does all these different things, and he himself is continuing his father's work. And his father's work is being in debt. His father's work is forcing women to lie down. Okay, thank you, William and Mary. It's forcing women to lie down against their will, and then calling the ones that he's forcing to lie down, not calling them women, but calling them N-word females. Persons forget, this is how romanticized everything gets. Persons forget that George Washington, let me help you out. No, excuse me. The Lynch family, Willie Lynch, let's go back. All right, Willie Lynch, when he gives the preaching that we have the notes of that he used, we have the bullet points that somebody put together in paragraph form for you, or really probably were written like that, but they were basically bullet points. He preached a message at a church about chattel slavery and how to make sure that he offed us as a people, or not even offed, how they kept us around to continue to have what they call good economics. That's the reason they say they need you to be around. Well, the Willie Lynch letter, right, that everybody knows about, that was a sermon given at the church, December 25th, 1712. Does anybody know where that sermon was given? I'll give you a hint. Part of the city's name is in his name, or his family's name. Willie Lynch. He gave the speech where? Where did he give the speech? Let's look at this properly. Let's look at this correctly. Where did Willie Lynch give the speech? In Virginia, right? Okay. Now this is before Virginia has fought for independence. This is when stuff was starting to get a little tight, and taxing and stuff is starting to be talked about and all that, right? So he has a family. Now he wasn't in Lynchburg. He was close though. His family eventually gets a city named after them called Lynchburg. Okay. So he gave the speech in Virginia. All right. This is how romanticized it is. You don't think about this. If he gave the speech in Virginia, question, where was George Washington born? Where was Thomas Jefferson born? Where was James Madison born? Where was James Monroe born? Uh-oh. Now it's important that we catch this and we don't just ignore this and go over it. They were all born in Virginia. Guess what all of their occupations were? Guess what every single last one of their occupations were? Uh-oh. We're headed somewhere. See, the romanticizing is so romantic that we have been blinded. See, romanticism blinds you to what is actually happening, because when you're in Rome, not only do you do what the Romans do, but when you're in Rome, you will see how the Romans see. Okay, so they were born in Virginia, all of them. What was their occupation, every single one? Virginia is for lovers. How you doing, Minister Smaler, if I didn't say so already? So all of them were slave owners. Now what they'll tell you, no, all of them were in the business of growing crop. They were slave owners. They were all chattel slave owners. Don't let them fool you. Don't let them romanticize this. It's important that we catch that, because that means that that's 4 out of your first 5 presidents. The first 5 presidents, I forget exactly what the term they use for them, but they basically are supposed to be part of the fathers of your nation. Right? After that, the next generation takes over. John Quincy Adams is actually the son of the second president. He's the one who becomes the first president outside of that generation. Everybody else who were president, the first 5, even though we know there were 9 presidents before George Washington, but everybody else in that 5, right? Everybody else in that 5 are basically the same generation. Okay, they're the ones who were traitors to the crown. They're the ones who wanted to fight against not being able to own chattel slaves. That's just a fact, right? How you doing, Paul? Looks like the moderator's already got to you. The word is great. Come on, yeah, I'm on, right? So watch this. So here we are. How romantic are you, beloved? Let's keep it a buck. Let's keep it 100, because now this is so romanticized that we don't even get it. This means that all these Virginia slave owners who were presidents, and many of them who are signing the Declaration of Independence, and many of them who will later vote in George Washington, even though he wasn't voted in, they shanghaied it, right? Because remember, nobody voted against him, which means it wasn't an actual election, right? He had 100. If somebody today, right? If Donald Trump ran against somebody, well, hopefully he doesn't, but who knows nowadays. But if Donald Trump had ran against somebody, and he had ran against Kamala, and he had gotten 100% of the vote, y'all would have lost. Even if you were Republicans, a lot of you would have lost your mind, because you know that nobody gets 100% of the vote. George Washington did. And then when you do the research and realize only 6% of the country, or at least what was supposedly a country back then, that was coming together, only 6% were even allowed to vote, and many of them weren't even allowed. Right? But I say all this going back. Willie Lynch, 1712. Uh-oh. He's brought over from the West Indies to ensure that chattel slavery can still exist, and that the South can get what it needs to. And Virginia is starting to lose money, and it's starting to be hard to keep these slaves in order, and the slaves are revolting. So how can we make sure that they continue to lose who they are? We got to get them to bow down to the system. And so they bring Willie Lynch over, and he preaches a sermon in Virginia. That means that if you do the math, right? When George Washington, I believe, I could be wrong on this, but I believe when George Washington takes over as general in 1776, right? He was 40 years old. Somebody might correct me, but I'm only going to be off by maybe 10, 20 years anyway, right? But George Washington, if he's a general at 40, that's 1776. Go back 40 years, that's 1936, or 1736. He's born 1736. I could be wrong. I'm somewhere in the ballpark. Okay, we're in the 1700s. But I'm saying all that to say, I'm just doing some math. I'm not 100% sure when he was born. I'm pretty sure he was about 40 years old. If he wasn't, forgive me. I think he's about 40 years old, either when the war starts or when the war ends. The war didn't go that long, so I'm only off 10 years or so, something like that, right? Somebody fact check me if you like. I'm in the ballpark. That being said, that means that his parents and definitely his grandparents are alive, and as Virginia slave owners, they show up when Willie Lynch shows up so that he can preach this sermon about how to ensure that they keep chattel slavery in line, or chattel slavery as a system, and keep the chattel slave in line. Right? If we do our math, we just do some quick math, even if I'm off on the actual exact date or exact age, we're not that far off from being able to say his grandparents show up to this meeting. We're not that far off. Thomas Jefferson, at the end of the war, is 33 years old. Right? So he drafts the Declaration in his 20s. At the end of the war is in his 30s. So that means his grandparents and maybe his great-grandparents are at this meeting with Willie Lynch is telling everybody about chattel slavery and how to keep it together. This means Monroe and Madison's parents, grandparents, or great-grandparents are at this same meeting. Okay? It's so romanticized that we don't even put together that if there's a Willie Lynch letter. This is why they have to fight against there being such a thing. How you doing, Brother Cole? Right? We know there is, but they have to tell you, oh no, you're overdoing this, you're making too much out of this. And I tell persons this all the time. Even if there was no Willie Lynch letter, which I believe wholeheartedly there was, that being said, even our own people, a lot of them are complaining and arguing and saying it can't be, okay, well the stuff that's in the letter, all of it really happened anyway. So you still, at some point, even if you think it's a myth, you still have to realize that the myth is based off of reality. But I believe this to be true. You do with this what you will. I believe this to be true. I believe there to be too much evidence to the contrary. Or evidence against the contrary, excuse me. So I believe it to be true. Right? You just went through Lynchburg. Yeah, we just came from Monticello and dealt with racism in that area and all that stuff or whatever. It is what it is, right? We went through sundown town trying to get through there as fast as possible. The sun was already down. Yeah, so, these things still exist. But, when we go through this and we look at this, we have to realize and recognize, right? Like I was talking about with the Jefferson Bible and Slave Bible yesterday and all that stuff. You have to realize and recognize. Okay, somebody said there's no sound. Oh, interesting. Did the sound go away? They're messing with us. They're messing with us. I'm sorry, y'all. You back? Okay. Okay, sorry about that. So we have to realize that we have to realize that these persons are liars, extraordinary liars, and are constantly, consistently romanticizing everything to the point to where you don't recognize that, hey, there's a family lineage. So when you talk about Monticello, which is Thomas Jefferson's place, you're dealing with 5,000 acres that was owned where chattel slaves were ornamented. Right? You're talking about several different families that exist. They only talk about the Hemings family, but there's several different families you have to be honest about. Right? And by the way, let's do this. Seeing the romanticism of stuff. And the romanticizing, you have to realize the persons who write his story is him. All right, how you doing, Sister Joy? The one who writes his story is him. The one who writes his story is who? Is him. It's his story. So if we're going through his story, we have to also take it with a grain of salt. Because do you believe that Thomas Jefferson told you about every woman or N-word female that he forced? Do you believe that? They worship the father of lies, for sure, right? Do you believe that? That every time that he forced a woman, matter of fact, he didn't think of them as women, he thought of them as property. So because you guys know about a few of them, some of you only know about one of them and all the children he had through one of them, but because you know about a few of them, you think that you know about all. right? George Washington, before he had his fifth set of dentures. So remember, him and a friend of his that was a dentist came together for dentures because he was so bad with what he ate. He ate candy and stuff so much, and he didn't eat real food. Yes, they had a problem with that back then, right? He didn't eat real food for so long that his teeth fell out. That's why a lot of his pictures are because he has no teeth, right? It's because he don't have no teeth. So that's why a lot of his pictures are like that, right? A lot of you might not know. George Washington, literally, when you see George Washington, what's the pose that they always have? And he be with a hand in his pocket or whatever, right? The Napoleon pic. Hey, what's up, man? How you doing? I thought you were gonna
I do got my chain. You ain't tell me to bring it though.
No, yeah, I didn't even think about it. Well, because of the sun, they'll be messing with the.
I can go grab it right now.
Okay. Yeah, it's beautiful around here, for sure. Yeah. But and how you doing, Document? Thanks for being on. Thanks for sharing the live. How you doing, Doc? How you doing? Everybody coming in. If I missed you, how you doing? Planting seed, right? Oh, Woodrow Wilson. Okay, yep, that's another thing we could bring in here. Yeah, he didn't tell half the story, right? Because he looked at these persons as slaves, right? He looked at these persons as property, the same way that they say, oh yeah, Julius Caesar, blah, blah. No. Julius Caesar, he looked at these persons as property, right? Property serves his purpose. If it didn't serve his purpose, and like we talked about yesterday with Hitler, and with Mussolini, and with all these other cats, right? Like we talked about them yesterday, right? Like we talked about them yesterday, they served themselves. Hitler at the end of his life, right? And by the way, before somebody says, show me your source, you got to do some research. How about this? Look for the woman who did memoirs in the 1990s who off their own children because she couldn't imagine them being in a world without Hitler. She was in the bunker. She was one of his secretaries. Look at the other secretary who passed away in 2002 and how she said this stuff is true. Look at his, I don't know when this person died, but he's in a film or recording or whatever in 2003. He was one of Hitler's former bodyguards. We continue to go down the list of persons who were there when Hitler died or when we're there the last week he was there or the last month when everybody's in the bunker, whatever it is, right? And they tell you some of the stuff that he says and ever said and all this stuff. And Hitler is asked specifically, hey, let the people go. Go ahead and surrender. It's not all about you. They're not going to accept the surrender unless you surrender. And he says, he's like, if these people, right, which aren't his people, he's actually Jewish. Persons forget Adolf Hitler was Jewish. He offed his own family and put them in concentration camps and had them shot up and stuff because he didn't want it to get back to everybody that the very persons that he's trying to get rid of is in his DNA too. He was Jewish. Yeah, don't tell this to any Hitler supporters, of course. Right, but quiet as kept. He was Jewish, right? Genocide against his own, right? Just like Lincoln did. These presidents, they set precedent. But anyway, so he was Jewish, and he offed his own family. And he told, though, when it came to the German people, he said, who cares about the German people? He said, I don't care if they survive after me. He said, if they're not strong enough to survive, who cares? He said, they're nothing without me. Hitler didn't do all this for the Aryan race. Hitler did it for himself. And you got to recognize. And by the way, by this time, he's hooked on recreational things you can take. His hands are shaking. He's addicted to all types of opioids and coca plant stuff and all that stuff. He's all over the place, shaking. Literally walking around shaking. Matter of fact, when you look at the Olympics in the 1930s, they try their best to hide it, but when you look at him, he's shaking his hand. He's fiending for a hit. He's a dope fiend. That's who Hitler was. That's the leader of their people. That's the person that they still look up to. That's the person that JFK said in his journal that he's going to be remembered as a hero to our people. Oh yeah. This is who they still romanticize. This is the person who was trying to become the next Caesar, who didn't mind finessing and lying and bringing together as many different things together as he could and saying that he was better than all of them. So when you guys see the couple of pictures with Hitler with a cross behind him, that was propaganda, but he was also saying he was greater than Jesus Christ. That's why they worship him. And I don't believe in Jesus, but I know who the Messiah is. And he was saying he was greater than him. You got to recognize this, right? Like a lot of y'all don't know. This is why Kanye, even though Kanye is messed up in his head, highly romanticized. He also has mental health issues, obviously, right? So I don't take pleasure, and I'm not one of these people that I'm so happy to see Kanye go there. Kanye got mental health issues. Persons with mental health issues, they need help, right? That those of us that are strong take on the mental health issues or the infirmities of the weak. Pray for Kanye. I'm not saying support his foolishness. Pray for him, and if you're ever in a position to help somebody like Kanye, get him help. Okay? Yeah, he was egotistical, narcissist, strung out. He was a dope fiend for sure, right? Now watch this. This is why Kanye wore the KKK thing at the interview with DJ Academic. He wore that KKK thing, which actually goes back to Spain. And when Spanish persons were actually often Negroes who were Jews, or the actual Jews, right? But he wore that, and then if you listen to his interview, he says the same type of stuff Hitler says, including saying that he doesn't go as far as saying Christ is under him. He says that Christ is the head deity, and he says that he is under Christ. He says so. Therefore, he said that was his problem with Kendrick Lamar. His problem with Kendrick Lamar is not that Kendrick Lamar went against Drake or that Drake did anything. He said his problem with Drake and Kendrick is that they didn't come to him because he actually believes. Remember, he said in that interview, he told you he's a God. And he said, those who have a problem with what he said, why you got a problem with what I said? I told you, I'm a God. I'm not going to change what I said. He believes that he's second to Christ. So when y'all saw him going around and doing all that stuff, right, and going from church to church to church, a lot of y'all don't know his belief system, at least what was becoming his belief system, was that Christ was the main spirit and he was under him. He's doing that lowercase g thing, but on steroids. And that's what it looks like. Somebody who's out of pocket like that, that's what it looks like, is Kanye West. How you doing, Brother Michael? That's what that looks like. It looks like Kanye West. That's what it gives birth to, is a generation of Kanye West. Are you fine, Brother Bradley? Much love to you. Thank you for being on, sir. Right? That's right. People love to romanticize lies. It's romantic. It's very romantic. Very romanticized. They're telling you lies, and you don't know the lies. You don't know that it is a lie. You feel me? You have a difficult time with it because you don't even recognize that it's a lie. So it's romanticized. That's what Romans do. When in Rome, you do what the Romans do. So if the Romans tell you George Washington is the first president, guess what you say? George Washington is the first president. If the Romans say that they actually have a country, you say they have a country. If the Romans say that, hey, this is what makes us powerful, this is what gives us our position, right? They say this is not genocide, this is just what it is, then you say the same thing, which is why today genocide still takes place. And you still say, hey, that's a victory, right? Today, just like George Washington not eating real food, his teeth falling out, and what did he do? He went around and he took the teeth out of his slave's mouth. It wasn't until the fifth set of dentures he had that they started having all ivory. But before that, they were testing stuff out, including taking wood, wire, and slaves' teeth out of their mouths because he had zero teeth. That's how he got his dentures. And then what you'll find when you go to Mount Vernon and places like that, they'll say, oh, yeah, he, it's crazy. They'll say, he gave him pennies. He paid them. What, for their tooth? I'm gonna be careful. I almost cussed right there. Were they tooth? My guy? like somebody rips your tooth out and it gives you pennies for it. I don't care what pennies were worth back then. Ain't nobody ripping your teeth out. If you free, by the way. But see, even to this day, somebody can do wild stuff to you and you say, okay, somebody can force you to take that jab. Not saying that you can't do whatever you want to do. You should have free will. But I'm saying many of you were forced, coerced. We had to, if y'all remember back to them, we had to show a lot of you guys on paper, on wax, like, hey, this is how you do it. Fill this out. This is the law. This is the code. Remember, they even took the old YouTube channel that was up that they took down. They took that down because we were teaching that, if you remember. That's why I don't accept anything through YouTube or TikTok as far as these payments anymore, because this is all owned by companies, owned by these corporations. And one of the biggest corporations are these AHA, and all this stuff. You don't know these are corporations, or they're part of the corporation of the United States. What was the one, the main one? I forget. They're the ones under NATO. Whatever their medical thing is, they were the ones that actually told YouTube. YouTube gave me, I have documentation. They sent me stuff and said, hey, you're gonna end up getting taken down because so and so is after you. Whatever their medical thing is, the ones that were the most responsible for putting that stuff out worldwide, right? And I have to be careful with my language and saying who's who anyway. But I'm just saying, like, that's because we're still in Rome. When in Rome, as we said earlier, as we established already, you do as the Romans do. So once again, how romantic are you? Watch this. If you have fathers, this is why I said be careful about this. All Christianity, right, the mixing of iron and clay, yeah, there you go. Who? WHO, that's who it is. So all Christianity is the mixing of iron and clay. That's why all Christians, not just by people who believe in the Bible, by Romans, by Greeks, by persons who are alive in the day, by pagans, whoever, they all thought that Christians had mental health issues because they didn't actually follow the Bible. And guess what? A lot of persons still today think a lot of Christians have mental health issues. And a lot of persons hear my title, they hear pastor, they go, ooh, even though I'm using that because that's the title y'all know, we actually go with cut it, which is a symbol, right? Which is a different kind of thought process. But either way, right? All this stuff, cats hear it and they go, ooh, and I get it because a lot of pastors are out of their mind. We talked about one a lot here. Used to be in Baltimore, he that moved down to Georgia. Jamal Bryant. Jamal Bryant will preach a sermon. Hear me on this. Jamal Bryant will come to you and he'll preach a sermon talking about how the Bible says, this is what he's saying. Or at least he can't say the Bible says, but you know, he's clever in how he does it and approaches it. And he'll give you some stuff on how, like, it's okay for us to offer our own children while they're still in the womb. That A word that rhymes with extortion. He'll say that that's okay, right? He'll preach that. And y'all don't look at his history. When he was in Baltimore, building up his name over here and building up his big church that now he's left, he was over here not only cheating on his wife, but then getting these girls pregnant. And most of them he was convincing to get that A word that rhymes with extortion. So when he's preaching down in Georgia and y'all think, oh, he's just preaching this thing and he's supporting women. No, he was offing your babies. And now that y'all are saying it's okay, he's like, shoot, I'm going to start preaching the same thing because that makes it look like it's okay with what I was doing. So now you done had this dude take this mentality down from Baltimore down to Atlanta, right? And all this, and by the way, cats in Baltimore, if you remember in 2020, I was out there with like a lot of, now I wasn't out there marching per se, but I was out there outside, I was doing stuff. Y'all saw the stuff we were posting back then. And you can see clearly, Jamal Bryant is out there, and cats, especially those who are in the streets, they saw this man, and they tried to beat him up a couple times. One of the reasons why he rolled out, because he was out here fooling around. They was like, yo, you destroy our families. You lying to us. We ain't never seen you out here before. You was saying that the police should do blah, blah to us, and now you gonna be out here. They almost whooped him right on camera a couple times. Go look it up, right? Right here in Baltimore. Almost put it to him a couple times because they ain't got time for that, right? You can say whatever you say about cats. Some cats in Baltimore, yeah, some places is grimy, it's this and that. But for real, like a real always recognize real, and we see you out here, you playing us. You trying to get views? No, they almost served that man up a couple times. Praise y'all, nobody had that thing on him, or at least nobody thought to use that thing. But they put hands on him a couple times. He had to run for his life. No wonder he died in Georgia. Y'all think that he'll come to you, the Lord led me. No, ain't the Lord lead you nowhere. You about to get whooped, right? Ain't nobody got time for these lies. You was out here, you were taking children, our children, out of our mother's wombs. And then the children that you had, you got a divorce, and then wouldn't even take care of them, and then gave that sorry excuse for a sermon, talking about some, I'm the man, and said that David messed up, and since David messed up, people can't understand. He never apologized, he never addressed what he did, he never said what he did, he gave that sorry sermon, and then he left the church that he said he was never going to leave. This is, right, but persons romanticize him so much, that by the way, he who did all that stuff sexually perverted, and all this stuff and messing up our community, then he leaves and he goes down to Georgia and goes to New Birth, the same church that, what's his face, that Bishop, whatever his face is, was messing with little boys. What shows you down there, they don't even care. You have one bishop messing with little boys, then they have a search to find somebody where they can reestablish their name, and they bring this dude who's messing up black communities and now is preaching homosexuality from his pulpit. Bishop Eddie Long, thank you. That's who that was, right? Y'all remember, and I'm not saying he did, but I'm saying y'all remember what he passed away from, right? And how skinny and scraggly he was looking at the end and all that. right? Yeah, sure. Put no faith in man, but at the same time, if that man is messing up, I tell you the man's messing up. What you talking about? I'm with you, right? We're not going to do that thing we did yesterday. See, cats would defend this foolishness. When in Rome, you defend what these emperors do. Remember, the word emperor is how one would address. Before you look at it the way you do, the word emperor was like calling somebody master. If you were a slave, if you were a gladiator slave, gladiator's a slave, just like these $1 million slaves today. If you were a gladiator, you address your master as emperor, as emperor, right? And no, sorry, I'm a little hyped on the subject matter, so hopefully I didn't come. I'm not coming at you. I apologize. Right? How you doing? Hey, how you doing, brother Ronnie? I see you. Hopefully y'all are doing well down there. So, but you see what I'm saying? Like we're out here on some wild foolishness. Okay, yeah, I'm with you. I just realized in my head, Holy Spirit brought to my attention, like that's kind of rough. I didn't mean it to come out that way, so I apologize. Thank you for that, though. Thank you for understanding. But you see what I'm saying? So how Roman are you? How romantic are you? Once again, a lot of you think that romantic means. By the way, look at this. Some of you think romantic means go on a date and candlelit dinner at a table, lights it down. You know why you think that's romantic? It's because it actually is. Now, this is what I mean. Back in the day, see, a lot of you, once again, to the victor goes the spoil. So a lot of your history is written by rich persons or their slaves. So they're not telling you about how the poor live. You got to do some research outside of them, right? Just like today, if you were to ask somebody, matter of fact, my wife and I laugh at this all the time. Do you guys know that in places like Germany and other places, France, no, I don't know about Switzerland, but places in Europe, that a lot of persons are afraid for you guys in America. Matter of fact, they actually put, you know how they have the Feed the Children commercials? They have Feed the Children commercials for you guys who are over here in, they have Feed the Children commercials for those of you who are over here in the United States because they know a lot of you live like third world countries. A lot of so-called Americans live in houses that are falling apart. A lot of them are living in tents. A lot of them are living in their vans and trucks. And it's so romanticized here that just like in Rome, and just like in the history of Rome, you would think everybody was living this lavish life and everybody had everything. And no. Just because you got paved roads, they had paved roads back then. You got so much traffic, there's traffic jams, they had traffic jams back then. Right? You got places where people get water, and a lot of places, there's a lot of places persons get water regardless of how clean the water may or may not be. Right? You have sewage, they had sewage. Doesn't mean that there weren't persons in abject poverty. I've traveled enough with this nation. You said it doesn't even say Jews. What are you talking about, CS? What are you talking about? I have no clue what you're talking about. Be more direct. You said because you have to take care of the rest of the world. You don't take care of the rest of the world. What do you think you're in America? Are you in America? Are you a citizen of America? I don't understand what's going on here. I must have missed something. Who are you talking to? Who are we talking about? Who's taking care of the whole world? You think the United States of America is taking care of the whole world? The United States of America doesn't take care of everybody in the United States. You're white, mate. I don't care what color you are. I mean, you care about it. Obviously, it's clear you're coming from a very white thought process that makes you think you're superior to somebody, right? Even though you have to bow down on here, because you could easily be dismissed, right? You should take that into account. You're so superior that your word don't really mean nothing here. But you see what I'm saying? You're saying, so I can tell. So yeah, you say you take care of everybody else. It's a very romantic view, but y'all people are poor. Right? Let's just do this whole thing because I've talked about this before. Those of you who know how we operate here, there's no such thing as a white person, not because we're trying to eviscerate anybody or have some kind of weird mental genocide. White is not a color. It wasn't until somebody told you that white meant purity that you actually believed the hype. Yeah, ignorance is bliss. How you doing, Sister Shima? But let's just put that out there, right? White means the absence of color. It means opaque. It means clear. It means see-through. It means reflective. There's no such thing as white, right? Or there's no such color as white. White blood cell, clear. White polar bear fur, clear. White Arctic fox fur, clear. White, right? White snow, clear. When you put them under the microscope, you look at them, white blood cell, all that stuff, they are clear. So if you are alive and you have melanin and you have some kind of color, you have life, you cannot be white by definition. I don't care how albino you might be. if you're alive, by definition, you can't be white. All right, just telling you, right? That's why even the word human, the scientific definition, not mine, scientific definition of human. Now, there's a couple persons that would argue some other things. I'm not talking about the lawful definition. That's something different. The scientific definition of human is humus man, or even hue man, if you want to go there. But humus man, what is humus? Humus is dark, rich nutrient. Man is a person, also can mean a spirit inside of the person, meaning that you can't even be a human without being somebody who comes from dark, rich, nutrient earth in some way, shape, or form and has a spirit inside. So so now dealing with that, when you say because you are a white male, right? You are somebody who thinks that white is a thing, and you think that that makes you more of a male or a man than somebody else. The reality is that you, as a white male with a superiority complex, are nothing more to me than somebody who's 2 feet tall and wants to try and play me in basketball. Your stuff gets swatted, and you should be okay with me being nice. You're somebody who has to cut down somebody who has power. Remember our sister who said the only if you have to cut somebody's legs off to be taller than them, you're not taller than them, right? You're a monster. Now, that's a real human by law, right? But you're a monster. You cut persons off with the legs because you can't stand in the same place as they do. And by the way, when you say we have to take over the world, see, watch this. This is how much I know about this from my military days, from persons in my family that still work in the government or connected to them in some way, shape, or form. Watch this. This is how much I know. When you say we have to take care of all the other countries, who is we? I've served. I've been there with stuff like that. Who is we? Have you served before? Probably not. When persons say that we got to take care of the whole world, usually it's persons that never worked for the government a day in their life. Who do you serve? Who do you work for? Who do you have contract with? Who you're an indentured servant with? So you're talking to a veteran. Just because I choose not to keep up that same lifestyle I did and have my hair cut, what you would call properly and neatly and all that stuff. A lot of cats, like one thing that I see, I know that veterans don't say, most, I won't say all, but most veterans don't say stuff like, oh yeah, you know what, like, we'll go ahead and whatever any government official tells us to do, we have to do it. No, veterans go, no, I'll support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, both foreign and domestic. That was what you did in the oath. You had to say your name, state your authority, and say, this is what I'll do. And so if the enemy of the state is the state, then I'm trained to fight the state. That's what they train me for. That's what a veteran does. Right? So if you a real veteran, right, I can tell when cats speak certain languages, certain types of words. I can see that a lot of y'all don't get it. Right? And those that will serve blindly are the ones that used to take people off the throne in Rome all the time. And you had the different emperors and all that. Those who serve blindly. But when you say we, and we got to take care of, you don't have enough money to take care of another country. What you talking about? You have enough money. If I be honest with you, now I'm not trying to play games. So I don't know you. I'm making an assumption. But the way you're speaking, it don't seem like you got enough to take care of yourself. And when I say take care of yourself, the Bible says if you can't take care of your wife, you are less than an infidel. It also says, or at least you don't want to, but it also says that you should take, if you want generational wealth, you have to think about your children's children at least. And it sounds like you're not even thinking about somebody else and what they need. If America really was to keep their promise, at some point they probably should take care of other persons in the world. But they commit more genocide. And this person is very romanticized. You see what I'm saying? So you're so romanticized that you're more on the Julius Caesar tip. Like, here's another one for you in Rome. Marcus Aurelius. He's considered out of the five emperors that they had back to back, whatever, that in the 300s or 400s, whatever it was, that actually are supposed to be great emperors and brought things back the way they were supposed to for Rome. Okay. So when you look at those five emperors, and Marcus Aurelius, he's supposed to be a beacon of hope and light and all this stuff like that. And everybody says we need to follow his example as far as marriage and all these things. But here's the deal. Marcus Aurelius committed genocide too. Marcus Aurelius had persons in his family that were off as well. Marcus Aurelius, look at his son. And what his son comes and do, which means that he wasn't really raising the son. And he talks about that in his memoir, but we go over that. because it's so romanticized. Whoever these persons are, we let them get away with stuff. This is the conversation one. Now, watch this. Persons would say this conversation we need to have about Trump, and you're not incorrect in that. That being said, why don't you have these conversations about Biden? You know, the same Biden that when he was running for president told you that unlike Spanish persons in the Latino community, he said that, or I'm sorry, he said unlike the black community, he said Latinos have a rich and diverse history. And you voted him in. Why? Because he's a Democrat. You didn't hold him accountable. See, this is why we can't mess around with this. Either you in or you not. Either you all the way in or you not. Hey, how you doing, Ralphie? I feel like it's been a long time no talk to you. Hopefully you're doing well, right? And who is that? Americano, right? Thanks for being on. So a lot of persons miss this. That's right. Two wings of the same bird, the same corporate vultures. That's right. It's two wings on the same bird. It's two sides of the same coin. You can flip it all you want, but no matter what, how many times you flip it, if it lands tails and if it lands heads, it's still the same coin. Right? And that's what they do, by the way. When Trump leaves, more than likely you'll get a Democratic president. And when that Democratic president comes in, guess what? Everybody will be upset by the time he finishes. Don't forget that Obama had Michelle doing her little dance and all this stuff with Ellen DeGeneres. And then, meanwhile, while she was dancing, saying how the children need to eat healthy, Obama was signing the paperwork to say that they didn't have to tell you it was in the food. Obama, when he was running, he said, I'm not the white president, I'm not the black president, I'm the president. Everybody said, oh, that's so great. And but you forget the question he was asked. He was asked, what are you going to do for black people? And he immediately made sure he told you, I'm going to keep the same thing because I'm supposed to do what? I'm supposed to run the union, keep the union, address the union. He's not here. Lincoln was not here to free the slaves or let the slaves go. He was here to keep the union and get it back to what it was supposed to. Every president is about the union. I was watching something last night when they were trying to, some guy, was talking, now he's from England, so give him a little bit of benefit of the doubt, but he was up here talking about, oh yeah, you had the Union, or no, you had the North and the South, and the North was called the Union. No, the whole United States of America is the Union. They seceded from the Union and made by the way, a false corporation, a false confederacy. You know that flag, or it's not even the flag. It's a lot of y'all think it's the flag, but it's actually what do they call that in the corner of the flag, like where we have our stars, and then you had if you're an American, you have your stars over there, and then you have a red and white stripe. But the jack, it's the Confederate jack, right? So whenever you see that jack, you think it's a flag. That jack started being used as a flag when the KKK started, and then when they started hanging persons, and when they started erecting statues. That's when that flag, or when you thought it was a flag, that's when they started to so-called use it. But that Confederate jack. But the Confederacy is a false corporation. You know why? Because you cannot become a real country or even a corporation to a certain degree, but you cannot become a nation unless another nation says you're a nation, right? Like you guys know, the reason why, if you are a preacher, so I do any weddings that I'm over are always private, right? We write out the contract and do all the stuff and put the stuff together, but it's separate. I don't do public marriage. Right, you guys know that even the ministers that we allow to do marriage and stuff, they have to come to us. We tell them, we teach them, we say this is what you got to do, whatever, because you're signing a private contract. You don't have to go through the public, right? But that's why if you are if you're a public preacher, many persons are. So this is what happens. So I used to be one in Washington D.C. I no longer am. But let's say I was still under Washington D.C. or let's say whatever state. Let's say I don't know, Maryland, Virginia, Pennsylvania, Idaho, I don't care. Let's say I was in Idaho. If I'm in Idaho and I'm a preacher, a lot of persons don't know this because they once again are lawless. This stuff has been romanticized so much. So a lot of preachers don't know this, so because a lot of you are lawless, right? You don't follow law. You don't care about law. You don't even care about legalese, even though you follow it. So what happens is this, is by law, let's say I'm in Idaho and I become a minister and then eventually an elder or a reverend, whatever. Somebody has to come and say, all right, you are allowed not only to preach, but you're allowed to be an elder or you're allowed to be ordained. When somebody ordains me, it's because they themselves are ordained. I can't be ordained in Idaho as a reverend publicly under the state unless somebody under the state who has authority. That's why they say by the power invested in me, the power is not really coming from who you guys call God. The power is actually coming from the state, because the state is the one who tells you how and when you can marry somebody, right? If you're into private, then you can actually go to the Most High. You can actually crack open this Bible, and you can go, oh, okay, how does the Bible say get married? But a lot of you don't get married because it's so romanticized. You don't get married correctly, right? So you guys get married wearing that white dress and wearing and doing all this stuff and walking down the aisle and being in the church and doing all this and having to get your stuff with the state. That's because the state allows for that marriage, and that means that your marriage technically makes you property of the state, or your marriage, which means that's why if you have children and you break up, what do? They bring your children to who? The state, and it goes to a corporation. That's what a judge and all of them are doing. When you go to the courtroom, that's a corporation, and you go in that corporation, and what do? They bring you before the judge, and these judges that are over the children, the wards now, that are there because they're all under you, and you gave them birth certificates and all that stuff. So you go in, and what do? They use those situations to actually make their pockets fatter. It's romanticized, so you don't even think about that. But the judges, when they make decisions on these children, when you guys split up, that's why some of these judges even want you to split up. There's money in it. They get their retirement off of your breakup. So they get a percentage. A lot of sisters, when y'all like, I want more, I want more, I want more, you don't realize the state is saying, yeah, we want more too. Or brothers nowadays, it's becoming fair game either way. But they're saying, yeah, get more, because we want more. They're putting money in their pockets. You know that not all states, let's make this very clear, it's not every state, but most states, the persons, the judges' pensions come from child support. So if the judge's pension comes from child support, do you think that the judge has a vested interest in your marriage staying together? Right? But you don't realize this. That means also the same preachers or the same judges or the same persons that are going out there and getting permission from the state, they're not there to do a lot of stuff that you should need. For example, why is it that many of you get somebody to do stuff with you as far as your marriage, but or to get you married, but they don't force you, right, just to go through marriage classes? They don't force you to go through marriage classes. Now watch this. Somebody says, why would they have to force me? I shouldn't have to be forced in who I love and this and that. Okay, can I ask you a question? How important is marriage to you? How important is marriage to you? If you're married, if you're going to be married, whatever, some of you would say no. But so let's do it like this. For those of you that marriage is extremely important and we do it properly, right? For those of you where marriage is extremely important and we should do it properly, okay? Let's do it like this. All right? Let's do it like this. Marriage is so important to you that you didn't think you needed training for it. You didn't think that you needed to go through classes for it. You didn't think that your partner needed to go through classes. You didn't think that you needed to be qualified, even though your Bible says that you should be pre-qualified for marriage. You know how I know? Even if you don't know the culture, just going by English. If you know in English that your Bible says what? Your Bible says, he who finds a wife. Question. Does that mean that when you find a woman, you make her a wife, or does that mean when you find her, she should already be a wife? Shalom, Sister Oscar. How you doing? How you doing, Mark? How you doing, Travel Life? Thanks for being part of the community. How you doing, Brittany? Thanks for being part of the community. Should she be qualified as a wife already, or are you supposed to make her a wife? Uh-oh. That also means, should he be qualified as a husband, or should you have to make him a husband? See, a lot of y'all got this thing twisted. You're not looking for husbands, right? You're looking for somebody to pay bills, right? But you're not looking for a husband. A lot of y'all got this twisted. You're not looking for a wife. You're looking for somebody that got hips, but you're not looking for a wife. A wife, at some point, the hips, they're going to be there, but they're not going to look the same. At some point, the breasts will still be there. The breasts will still be there, bro, but they're not going to look the same. You're looking for a wife, right? At some point, the money might get funny sometimes. But that's not what made him a husband in and of itself. You should have counsel, but hear what I'm saying, right? Watch this. Follow me. This is how romanticized the stuff is. We don't realize. If you're going to drive a car or travel, but you guys know what I'm talking about, right? I won't go into the travel who's driving. If you're going to drive a car, question for you, beloved. May I ask a question for you? How you doing, Demetria? Right, it's very important to you. Okay, let's do this. If you're gonna drive a car, should you drive a car and you've never had to take a class, or you never had somebody driving there with you, or you're not of the correct age? Should you just drive a car just because? Or should we know for sure that you know how to drive? Just a question. See, I want to show you the level of importance that you don't hold on marriage because of how romanticized this is. Right? In order to drive a car, you feel that it's important that you, that your baby, that your child. Matter of fact, I'll be honest. I tell persons with CDL, yeah, go ahead and travel, but when you're behind that truck, because you're employed, I'd like for you to have the CDL. I would like to know that you know how to drive a truck. I just would. I'd like to know that somebody, in order to get the CDL, somebody got to check your vision. I'd like for you to make sure because if somebody hit the brakes on a truck, it take a minute. And so I need your vision to be on point because I don't need you to be out here can't see, but somebody gave you the CD or somebody gave you the permission to drive their truck. Right? It takes training. It takes practice. Okay, watch this. If you were to go get a tattoo, uh-oh, just a tattoo. I mean, tattoo, pretty big commitment. I don't believe the Bible doesn't say you should have tattoos, but it is what it is. If you got them already, praise y'all. Forgiveness is there. Do what you do. If you're somebody who thinks you should have one, hey, I'm not here to down you. I'm just using it as an example. If you are going to go get a tattoo. Do you want somebody that is allowed to give tattoos? Somebody trained? Somebody that knows what to do with the needle? Or are you just going anywhere? Some of you do. Some of you get jacked up. Some of y'all have horror stories. You would prefer, especially if you have that horror story, you say, I want somebody with training. Okay, watch this. If you're going somewhere to get your hair did, right? Right? If you're going to get your hair did, sis, right? If you're going to get lined up, bruh, you want somebody that got training, especially if they putting perm in your hair, which you shouldn't be getting anyways. Not just because we talking about your hair shouldn't lay flat or whatever. Some persons have that naturally. I'm saying right, or even flat combs and stuff that we used to use back in ancient times, or flat combs, hot combs, stuff we used to use in ancient times, not just modern times. But I'm talking about specifically, right? Like if somebody putting perm in your hair, if you that's what you decide to do, and even though it's poison, wouldn't you like to know somebody knows how long the perm should stay in? Wouldn't you like if somebody putting a hair coloring in your hair? Don't you want to make sure somebody knows how chemicals work? There should be some training. Matter of fact, let's put it like this: if you playing for sport, if you're playing games for sport, wouldn't you like to make sure that the person who's telling you how to shoot, person who's telling you how to dribble, whether you're talking about with your feet or with your hands, depending on the sport, wouldn't you like somebody to be trained in it? If your team is getting sent to the Olympics, didn't they just do the Olympics? They just did the Olympics last year. What is that? 2024. So in 2028, when your team is sent to the Olympics, aren't you hoping that their coach knows how to play the game? Right? You're not just like, oh, get Kofi off the street. He preaches well. Let him be in charge of our soccer team. No, you wouldn't want that. That's foolishness, right? That's crazy. I don't know how to play soccer like that. I know some of the rules, but I can't play soccer. I teach my son basics, but for real, there's coaches for his soccer stuff. He can go play with somebody else because I'm not on that level. If I want him to achieve greatness in soccer, if that's what he want to do down the road, he's very great on defense. Defensive person, if he wants to achieve greatness down the road, he ain't gonna get that from me because I ain't grow up playing it, and I don't. So I'll be there. I'll learn the game. I'll learn to be able to tell stuff. But guess what I'm gonna be doing? I'm gonna be repeating what his coaches say because his coaches know more about the game. Now, if he want to come to me for swimming, if he want to be for basketball, we can have a better conversation with that. But soccer's not my thing, right? But so in all those things, we know that we need training. But then here comes something where your vows are what? For better or worse, sickness and health, to death do you part, right? For richer or for poorer, forsaking all others. And you can just go ahead and walk down the aisle as long as you can pay $10 fee at the court. You think they're setting you up for success, or they're setting you up to go through the system and get divorced 2, 3, 4, 5 times? Matter of fact, let me ask you a question. This is going to be one that messes with you. Um, why is it that we know that men and women, one of the biggest things that causes you a lot of spiritual, physical, emotional setbacks is pornography, but none of y'all have ever been trained to deal with it. Uh-oh. Like, how is it that we know that sexual immorality is one of the worst things to attack our society? Look, if we want to be honest, look, what they call it, buck breaking, D-Lo, stuff, sagging the pants, doing all this stuff, not knowing that it came from prison and San Quentin and all this stuff. We don't talk about sexual, perversion. Can I say something? Get mad at me if you want, brothers. One of the reasons why we can't even do what we're supposed to do for our wives overall, not saying if the shoe fits, wear it. If it don't, take it off. This might not be for you. That's okay, right? But brothers, one of the reasons why you have some of the issues with women that you have, right, is due to the fact that you are not even trying to take care of women. You're usually in competition with other men. And sisters, one of the reasons you have issues with men is because you are in competition with each other. You're not actually trying to do stuff that men actually care for. We talked about this before. No offense to anybody, but we just keeping it a buck. You ready? How you gonna be sitting there with these huge lashes talking about this is what I'm gonna get men for? And I'm telling you as a man, right? There's a man, forgive me, he busy, but there's a man listening. He can, if I'm lying, I'm flying. I've had a few conversations with this brother. I ain't known him too long, but great brother. I've never had a conversation with him, and we've had a conversation about women's eyelashes. No offense to anybody. It's just not something that men be like, and I'm not saying it's not cute to see, but you can just have normal eyelashes. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to buy it. You don't have to do. I've never had a conversation with any dude, and we was like, "Yo, what's the most attractive thing on a woman?" I've heard brothers talk about hips, butt, right, bosom, all that. I've heard about lips. I've smiled. I've never heard a brother be like, "Man, them lashes." Never. I'm not saying that there's not a brother out there. I'm just telling you as a man. I'm not. Now, some of you go to gay men and listen to them talk, but gay men are trying to attract men who are attracted to men. And that's because they are off. I'm sorry, I'm not gonna say it nice. They are off. Something's off. That's not how they were created. They're mentally challenged, right? Still have love for them. We still want to see them get better, but they're not right in the head. Just keeping it a buck, right? Now, watch this. Watch this. Then you got brothers who are out here. And watch this. This is what I need you to comprehend. Yeah, man. Look at me. I got the gold. I got the chain. And there's sisters who are following that for sure. But I'm here to tell you, a wife. See, that's why it doesn't say he who finds a woman. That's why it doesn't say he who finds a man. He who finds a wife. If you're already qualified, if you're already trained up, if you're already doing what's righteous, we should be looking for that. We should be looking for men and women who are qualified for families. You date persons hoping that after y'all finish sexing up and enjoying life and blah, blah, and all that stuff goes away, you say, well, maybe we'll start a family. That's not how it works. If you're not qualified for the family, you're not qualified for my time. Romanticize. Right? We're going to take the veil off. If you want to still live like that, you live like that, but realize you're living wrong. Right? Oh, talk is off? TikTok is off? Oh, shoot. I said the name. Okay. I'll pay attention to it. Can everybody hear and see me okay? Are we having issues? I think we're okay. At least from what I can see. But what I can see is not always what you guys can see. So help me out real quick. Can you guys see and hear me okay on the different, what are we calling them? Virtual, the different platforms or the different virtual spaces? You can hear us? Okay. Okay. Thank you. All right. So, but you dig what I'm saying? Right? Like you're so romanticized. Now watch this. You want to be the emperor, not realizing that an emperor is a slave master. You're not supposed to be the emperor, male or female. You're not an emperor of your house. If you were the king, guess what? A king, now I'm going to use the term queen. We know that the term queen, just to let you know, I don't use it that often because the term queen actually means whore. I don't like to call anybody a whore. So a lot of you don't know that. I'll use it a couple times and I won't point towards the camera because I'm not talking about y'all. But that's what y'all know. That's why we say Malakhe, or we'll say chieftain, we'll say the woman or the mother of the golden stool, different things that are coaching. But some of you want to continue to be in that system. You don't realize all these words are downplaying who you really are. They hate you, right? so I'm just gonna say this. I'm gonna just say it this way, right? But those of you who want to be king and queen and all this stuff of the castle and royalty over all this, I need you to recognize that you're in a system to where you don't realize that anybody who's true royalty is not royalty unless what they're doing can be multiplied and what they're doing can be solidified. So in the Bible, right, man and woman is actually called Adam. Adam's name literally means man. Adam, and there is a woman is another culture. Her the first name of who you call Eve. Remember, she's called Eve because y'all worship the moon, the evening thing. That's where that comes from. Even in your concordance, when you look up the term Eve, it means Amma, which means mother. So he called her mother after they sinned, and she became the mother of all children out of womb. Moses even says that, right? So, but her name was actually Ayazah, which means help me. All right. So there was a man and there was a helpmeet, right? He needs a helpmeet. And in his work, he realizes the need for a helpmeet. So when he realizes the need for a helpmeet in his work, he then comes into agreement with what Yah said, which is La'ataba Adam Bad. It is not righteous for Adam to be alone. So he said, I'll make for him a helpmeet. But first he says, let me give Adam some work. Adam in his work, right? Before woman existed, there was work. Before helpmeet came, there was work. Not job, not toil. There was work. There was responsibility. So in our responsibilities, in already being qualified as a husband, in being told to dress the garden and keep it, we then realize not only how qualified you are for a wife, but then we also realize if your life qualifies you for one to come in and help you meet the needs that will multiply the vision that Yah has given you. That doesn't sound very romantic, but guess what? That's what allows you to start being married 20, 30, 40, 50 years. You see the difference? A lot of y'all want the quick wham bam thank you ma'am, and you want all the stuff that comes with 30, 40, 50 years of growth. A lot of y'all want somebody to come in, right, and not realize that, hey, that brother needs to be in his work, and while he's in his work, he should be able to provide. But when you come in, you're going to help him to grow. I don't care if that brother's a millionaire, if he's a thousandaire, if he's a dollar heir. If you get with him in his work, you need to make sure that you realize part of your responsibility is to help him grow, and part of his responsibility is to protect the one that helps him grow. And that's parts, by the way. I didn't say that's all parts. So as you're doing it together and growing together, right, then you get a lot of these things that you're looking for. All right, movement you. Sorry, thank you for being on. Right. Yeah, people are creating soul ties for their own pleasure and carrying into different relationships. That's right. And then don't even cleanse themselves of the soul ties when they get ready to go to relationship number 75. Not saying that you slept with 75 persons. I'm just using this as an example. Not slut shaming either, whatever. I'm just giving the truth. Okay? So, and all these different things, we have to have honest discussion, honest dialogue. Cats don't want to be honest about this. Right? Cats don't want to be honest about this, and that we have literally created whole relationships and families based upon a very romanticized place, right? When you think about the love of Justinian and Theodora, if you even know that story, or if you don't research Justinian, Theodora, right? When you look them up, you'll look at that as somebody great, right? Matter of fact, this is how romantics work. Y'all wanted that Will and Jada love, even though there were signs from the beginning that was bull. Forgive me, but it was bull from the beginning. From the beginning. From the beginning, Will was trying to get with Jada, who didn't want him. She did what some sisters do. Brothers do it too, but she did what some sisters do, which is, and she from Baltimore. She a Baltimore sister. I know about Baltimore sisters. I'm just keeping it a buck. I'm not saying all y'all, but let's keep it a buck. You live in B-more, you know what I'm talking about. It'd be a little grimy out here. And she was like, no, I don't want you like that, but she passed him on to her girl. And because he wanted to get with her, he was around the girl, and then was like, well, I guess I've been with her girl long enough. I'll go ahead and I'll get married to her. Then later on, it don't work. They get a divorce, right? The dude that she's chasing, he's dead, and he's chasing her, and she's like, okay, I guess I'll go ahead and be with him. But she doesn't even want to get married. He on the marriage tip. She don't even want him. And now that she with him, she's like, okay, as long as I don't have to marry you. And then she'll come out later and try to write in the book, oh, I never wanted to be married. I don't believe in the norms of marriage. You wanted to be married to Pop. So you believed in marriage, just you believed in marriage to somebody you wanted to be with. But you never wanted to be with Will, to the point to where not only were you disrespectful, even though they had an open marriage, but you're gonna be disrespectful to the point to where your son has a friend and you're gonna sleep with the friend, and then when it comes out, you're gonna put it on blast on national tele or whatever it is, Facebook, the table talk, red whatever it is, red round table, red table talk, whatever it's called, and you're gonna have Will come on, your husband come in front of the world, and you're gonna say you were in an entanglement, and then fist bump him at the end talking about bad marriage for life. But that was romantic. Neither one qualified. Will wasn't qualified for marriage. He's a Philly dude that doesn't really know how to act. He knows how to act on screen and he knows how to act in front of you, but he's even admitted to you, he's never even given you guys his full self. He did what a lot of y'all do when you date. He gives his representation. He's very romantic. A lot of sisters, you don't want a real husband. You want representation of whatever it is that you want. Watch this. Can I tell you something? See, here we go again, romanticize. Ah, okay. How romantic are you? How romantic are you? Do you want to remain romantic or you want to come into some truth? Whether you want to or not, you're going to get some truth. Okay, you ready? And I apologize. I hope our signal's not getting bad on TikTok. I see the numbers are starting to go down some. Right? But watch this. Watch this. Matter of fact, TikTok, you're going to disappear for like 15 seconds. TikTok, you're going to disappear in 15 seconds. When I come back on, we're going to come back into the truth. Okay? You're going to disappear for like 15 seconds. I'm going to try and see if I can trick it into something because they're messing with our signal. All right, here we go. Here we go. Let's see if we can get this back on real quick. Okay. All right. Y'all see me on TikTok? You see me? Everybody else should be able to see me fine. You see me on TikTok again? What you said? You said truthful, honest questions and answers, logic come with solutions, romantics want problems. Mm-hmm. How you doing, Miss Q? Okay. How you doing? All right. Here we go. Watch this. Let's go. Let's go. Um, hmm. Persons want to be romantic. They don't want stuff that lasts. Persons want romanticism. They don't want realism. Persons want to be romantic. They don't want to be real. Okay. Persons want. This is. You know what? You know. Okay. How do I say this, Holy Spirit, without being offensive? Chat GBT, which, by the way, I think that you should use to a certain degree. It's a tool. It's fine. Whatever. I know some persons think that I just spoke the Antichrist into existence. Whatever. But Chat GPT, Chat GPT, yeah, Chat GPT. I'll be saying B. Chat GPT. Um, do you know a lot of persons have begun to have friendships, and even some people feel even romantically entangled with Chat GPT? You know why? Because Chat GPT, although it does have information that is valuable, Chat GPT is not necessarily worried about giving you the truth, as much as it is making sure you continue to sow or buy into what it gives you, right? And I'm not talking about like it's going to the Joaquin Phoenix levels or whatever that movie was called. It hasn't gotten there yet, even though for some persons it does. Some of y'all have that AI girl. And by the way, it's so crazy. If you just play games on your phone, no matter what age, they putting that app out there. If you're on Facebook and you're a man, they putting that app out there. They trying to get y'all to have relationships with AI girls that you creating yourself and all this stuff. It's there. We there. And a lot of men don't even know how to talk to women. A lot of men don't even know how to be men. A lot of women don't know how to talk to men. We getting there. But the reason why this is important for me to tell you is not just only because of the stuff that's happening with you getting away from reality, but the reason why it's also important for me to tell you this is because a lot of you, when you date, that's what you want. You want Chat GPT. You don't want somebody that's going to give you what you need. You want somebody that's going to give you what you want. Right? Jehovah is my shepherd. The Lord is my shepherd. Jehovah is my shepherd. I shall not want. Want means to lack. That's why I don't want anything. If I have anything or I get anything, it should only be what I need. And I'm not saying this just as a minimalist. No, I'm talking about if you need riches for where Yah's giving you, you need riches. If you don't need to be rich to be what Yah wants you to be and what you're called to be and what you're okay with, then you don't need it. To each their own on that. You have your own path to follow. You have your own part of the body. I can't tell you what you're supposed to do or what not to do. That's for you. That's your calling. That's your belief system. Well, not even your belief system. That's your calling. That's your walk. That's where you're supposed to be. But I'm saying all it to say this. Many persons, when they say, I want a man or I want a woman, right, what you're actually saying is you desire something that will give you what you want. And the second it doesn't give you what you want, it gives you what you need, you out. That's right. And Yah will supply all our needs according to his riches and glory. Right? So we don't look for, so watch this. Many of you, when you're looking for a job, do you pray to Yah and say, or do you start even on top of your prayer putting together your love action plan, your love plan, your action plan, and saying, okay, this is what I need to have, and I want to be able to have these days off, and I want to make sure that my children will do this, and I want to make sure I can teach them, and I want to make sure I can work this many hours at home, right? And then, watch this, do you stay on track no matter what? Or if the job comes through and says, hey, we'll pay you, right? But we're not going to allow you to do that, or we'll give you more money, but you're not going to be able to stay at home, and you give up those things because you say, well, at least I got more money, and then you say, praise Yah, praise the Most High. That's what you say. All praises to Him. Hallelujah, you say, because He's giving you a job, but that's not what you even desired. That's not even what He had desired for you. That's not even what your family needs. So now you change your family dynamic, and you say, okay, I guess I'm just going to have my children do this now. I know I said I was going to homeschool them, but now I'm just going to send them to school. And you start to say, well, how can I make more money in this and that? Because you're not getting what you need, you're getting what you want, not realizing that when you get what you want, you still lack. Put it like this. Put it like this. Um, a person that's overweight, right? A person that's overweight. Question for you. A person that's overweight, are they full or are they starving? I know this is not all the time, by the way, but just hopefully you get the context. A person that's overweight, you would assume that that person is always full. And I'm not saying because they're greedy. Hear what I'm saying? A lot of persons that are full or overweight are actually starving of vital minerals that would help their body to burn calories. Right? You ever seen the Feed the Children commercials back in the day? Y'all remember them from Africa? And you'd have the child, and they'd have the big belly sticking out and all that, and everything would be there. But that child actually was starving, but they had a big belly. But they couldn't digest food. They couldn't, no matter how much water you might give them, they still would be dehydrated because they might not have the minerals inside. They might not have the, not calcium, the magnesium. They wouldn't have the magnesium that your body needs. 300 and something enzymes in your body need magnesium to be able to digest food. And they wouldn't have it. So because they didn't have it, they couldn't eat. But if you look in the commercial, you might say, how do they have a big belly, but they're starving? They have a big belly because they're starving. They have extra fat because they don't get what they need, right? They have extra issues. They're growing things in their body, right? Sisters, you're having cysts and things on the inside, fibroid cysts, because of what you're eating, and because of stress, because of all this stuff. Because you also eat stress, and stress also denies what you eat, right? So you'll swear that you're getting, because you have access to more food, even though it's not food, right? Just like you think you're drinking, right, juice, but you're drinking drink. Right? Matter of fact, if you want actual juice, you should just eat the fruit, because the fruit is the way the juice is supposed to come, and it's better at hydrating you than the water that you drink. If you guys notice, like if you go back to ancient times, a lot of persons didn't live next to waters. I'm not saying there was no irrigation and stuff like that, or there was no water systems, but hear what I'm saying? A lot of persons didn't live next to the water like that. But they still were hydrated. How are you hydrated? Because fruit has H3O2. Water has H2. Water is H2O. Fruit makes it H3O2. When it's H3O2, it's better for your body. So if you want to get hydrated, you should drink the fruit or eat the fruit. The fruit, right? Especially when it's ripe and all that and it's juicy. When it's juicy, that's water, right? That's a solution. Like we talked about yesterday, it's a solution. It's water and fruit and all those minerals and everything that it took and all this stuff grew over time and it ate out of the ground. It's natural. It's ripe. When it's ripe for the picking, it's ripe for order. It's structure. It's going to take your body. You know, your body takes whatever it gives and it tries to put it back together. Yeah, you eat your water, not drink it. Right? If you're drinking anything, right, you have to be careful about that. That's why even when you go and you get something that you're drinking, make sure that this is actually something that's real. If not, it's just a drink, right? That's why a lot of the stuff that you have, it's drink, it's not juice, right? So you are what you eat. Everything is what you eat. A lot of you drink water because even the water that you're drinking is not actually the way it's supposed to be. Because even the water that I get, right, if I buy it from the store, and I do buy a lot of water from the store and stuff, but I try to make sure it's in glass, right? I try to make sure that I put extra minerals and stuff inside of it as well. I try to make sure it actually has minerals and doesn't just say it does, right? Try to put electrolytes in it. Electrolytes, by the way, is just simply anything that you're eating. So I'm trying to put fruit in there, lemon, lime, apples, whatever I feel like that day, pieces of stuff or whatever. Even if you can't see me doing it off screen, and sometimes you do see me on screen, I'm trying to do those things with what I'm drinking. Yeah, they've removed a lot of fruit trees. And so, and by the way, when they removed the fruit trees, have you ever thought about the fact you're always thirsty? Some of you drink water and juice all day and thirsty all day. If I'm really eating or drinking or being stuff, I shouldn't really worry about having, here's something that's going to sound crazy to some. When I was younger, I would go all day without water. I mean, I would drink water, from time to time, but I could go all day without water. I ate a lot of fruit, and I would go outside and I play basketball. And I would play basketball to the point to where I was sweating so much, like I used to literally sweat salt out. Like if you were around me, I mean, I'm talking about I was one of those guys shooting 1,000 shots bare minimum every day. Bare minimum. 1,000 was not that much for me, but 1,000 shots every day, putting up 1,000 shots, that's a lot. And I'd be doing it not in the gym, I'd be doing it outside on the concrete, sun coming down during the summer, and it would get to the point to where I freaked out the first couple times it happened because my body literally like it looked like it was white, and I would go like this, like trying to figure out what was going on, and I thought it was like dust or something. It was salt coming out of my body. Now that could be dangerous levels, but what I'm saying is I could do that all day, every day, and not have a problem with it, and have more salt and have more water and stuff every day coming out because I ate a lot of fruit. And back then, fruit had seed and a lot of stuff like that. And by the way, seed doesn't always mean that it's not real, but you hope to have seed. That's what we hope for, especially if you want to grow it. They take this stuff away. So, but you're thirsty all the time now. You can drink water all day, juice all day, and why am I drinking water and juice? If I'm thirsty, my body will reject it. My body will say, I don't need this. You said that fire hose back in the day, yeah. But I mean, and that was matter of fact, the fire hose was cleaner back in the day than it is today. But it's still we probably shouldn't have been drinking that. But I was just saying, like, um, but you have this desire. You trying to eat and eat and eat because you're not getting full. You're not getting something that quenches your thirst. You're not getting something that's feeding your body. The same thing has happened with a lot of persons in marriage or in your dating life that then you try to turn into marriage life. You're trying to get this stuff that's not actually feeding you. You romanticize this thing so much that you don't care about actually getting fed or getting full, right? You want it to look like you're full while in the meantime you're actually thirsting, right? A lot of persons are like that in their religion, or what we call religion. You're not trying to get something that's actually trying to help move properly. You're trying to get something that makes it appear to everybody like you're full. But the reality is you're empty on the inside. You can't even digest what it is that the world is giving you, that your job is giving you, that the word is giving you. You can't even take it. You can't live off of this. He said you can just hear me. Okay. TikTok is decent so far. All right, I'm gonna try something different. Oh wow, that's crazy work. I mess with it, and yeah, they messing with the signal. Somebody's messing with it, but that's why we got to be able to ship back and forth. Can you guys see me on YouTube at all? Everybody left already. Can you guys hear me? Yes, no, maybe so. YouTube, yes, no, maybe so. I'm back. We're back. Okay, I switched. The volume is back. Okay. How you doing, Sister Snap? Okay, we lost a bunch of persons. It is what it is. I didn't know we were buffering that bad. Okay, but you guys can hear me and see me okay? Because if so, I'm gonna try to bring TikTok onto this. Okay. TikTok, give me a second. Okay. I want to try something. I didn't even know they had that in this area. Hold on one second. YouTube is great. Now it's choppy again? Okay. But I don't, it's just choppy? Okay, so it's not great then. So I need to go to the other one then. All right. I was trying to see. Oh yeah, okay. It says on here, it shows me that it's worse over here. Yeah, okay. It's getting better, it's getting there. Yeah, I got one more. TikTok, can you guys see me and hear me? Yes, no, maybe so? It's probably a little worse, right? I apologize, I'm trying something. I didn't know that I even had this as an option. So I'm trying to see if this is an option. This helps me so we have yet another thing to ping this off of. You can? Is it choppy? Is it okay? Yes, no, maybe so? I might have to use this. Unfortunately, I might have to use this until there's no sound now. Wow. Con, clear. TikTok is fine. It's all great. Okay, all right. So this may come in and out, this signal, but at least I know I have this. I didn't know this was actually something that I could select. So I'm glad to know that. Praise y'all. So in the future, in the future, when I'm in this area of the city, I'll know that I have this as an option. I did not know. Praise y'all. Alrighty. I guess sometimes gentrification brings some great things. Okay. It's poor taste. I'm sorry. Or maybe it's not. I don't know. Anyways, I forgot where I was, but romanticism. I think about the relationship, but a lot of persons are looking for a Chat GPT experience, right? A lot of us are looking for a Chat GPT experience. We're looking for an experience where we are trying our best to get something. Because remember, Chat GPT is not there to give you the truth. It will. It's not there to help, but it will. But it's there to make sure that you resubscribe, that you re-up, that you pay your $20 a month or whatever it is. That's what it's trying to do. And I'm not gonna hold you. I told y'all I'm gonna start using it not just for drafting up some things, but from time to time we need to get some of this message out and do some more stuff for the babies. And so I'm gonna learn how to use it, put some music to it and stuff like that. And we're gonna have some videos that we can put out to make sure that our babies and other generations, and it's easier for you guys to show stuff, see things, post videos. We'll do some of that. I'm not even gonna hold you. Some people don't like that. It is what it is. And by the way, many persons, including IUIC and other persons like that, they do that all the time, right? But I'm here to tell you that a lot of you, what you want in your relationship is not something that will last, but something that just makes you subscribe. And a lot of persons therefore take advantage of you because they know that you are romantic, but not trying to be real. They know that many of you would like to have your names go down in history for having the greatest love rather than actually being protected by the greatest love. Right? Did you catch that? They know that many of you would rather have something that is considered to be great than actually have something that is great. Right? And how you doing, nurse? Thanks for being on. So they know this. They know this about many of us, that many of us are in a dating culture, and even if you are married, you're still going by a dating culture. Many of you have been married for decades and are still watching YouTube videos from persons that can't even keep a relationship tell you why your husband that stood by your side for 30 years and your wife has been by your side for 30 years, why you should be looking for somebody else or be trying to test them and get them to be something better than what they already are. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't get better every day, but my greatness, why is it that we don't take time out to realize that some of you are in relationship? There's somebody right now who is watching. Hear me. You don't have to admit it. Don't put your hand up. Don't admit it, right? But the reality is some of you watch so much red pill stuff, and these red pillars can't even get a woman. The guy from what's the name? Fresh and Fit. I don't know which one he is. Is he fit? I think he's fit. The one that's from Africa but hates himself and hates black people and says he hates black women, etc. And was going out with that girl from Miami, the Spanish girl, and she was literally, according to him and somewhat according to her, she was doing stuff like she was letting him cheat. She was letting him do all stuff. She was packing up stuff. Now she probably was cheating too, but she was letting him do all the stuff, whatever, and would stand by his side. But he kept disrespecting her openly over and over and over again. And finally, she went with some guy, and he was like, "It's about the money. It's about this." She got with a guy, started posting stuff, and he found about it by her posting stuff. She finally had enough. She left him, and started posting stuff about her and this dude who was working at and no offense, I'm just saying the guy thought it was all about money. She was dating a guy working at Home Depot or something like that, right? No offense, no shade. Home Depot, great career. Hopefully they're paying you $20-something an hour if you can get up to that height. Maybe he a manager, whatever. I don't know. But I'm just saying they were doing. Everything was about all this stuff. Everything about all this extra stuff. All these different things or whatever. And Cass didn't realize and recognize, or he didn't realize and recognize she needed love. She needed affection. She needed warmth. She needed security. She needed somebody to speak her love language. She was out there having fun on skates. This guy was always telling her what she couldn't wear. And here's a guy that just says, hey, be yourself and be somebody that I can love. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't be modest and stuff like that. But at the same time, there's this really warped perception. And we listen to these persons, right? That sprinkle girl, if you listen to her, I don't know her name, but if you listen to her, I know enough about her to know this, that while she's telling you why it is that you shouldn't accept this, woo, 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 she's married while she's telling you to leave your husband. Her husband's still there paying bills, this and that, and she got to listen to stay in the house, but she's telling you, you need to be this, you need to be that. No. Like, she's taken care of before the YouTube thing, and if the YouTube thing falls, she's taken care of. Beyonce had y'all talk about with all the single ladies, right? Whatever that was. And she was married. You hear what I'm saying? You hear what I'm saying? She was married. She is married still. I don't know how much cheating was or wasn't going on. They say it was cheating. By the way, they seems like they probably have an open marriage of some kind too, and he cheated with the wrong one, right? But I'm just trying to tell you, and all that stuff that was going on, cats don't realize you're listening to persons, and some of these persons live the lives that they tell you that you shouldn't live, right? It's like it's all romanticized. Like the wool has been pulled over your eyes. You don't even realize like the game being run on you. Who's the name? The mother of the women's movement. What's her name? The mother of feminism, or look at the mother, the grandmother, or whatever of feminism, who worked for the CIA. Gloria Steinem. Gloria Steinem is married. When she's going into the black neighborhood and getting the black teenage girl to write a book to tell black women, teenage girl, not woman, teenage girl, right, to write her experience and say why all black men are trash and they're part of the patriarchy. Gloria Steinem. She's married while she's telling the black community to not be married and telling them you need to become feminists and telling them you no longer need to have children. And I'm telling you right now, I was talking to a few sisters just this week, who literally told me if they had to do it over again. I'm not saying, by the way, your only value is in being a mother and having children, but it's a lot of value in it. But Gloria Steinem had y'all out there tripping. Margaret Sanger romanticized. A lot of so-called black persons to this day, voting Democrat, will tell you never say anything bad about Margaret Sanger, about Planned Parenthood, right? She's with us. She's one of us. Margaret Sanger hated you so much, she said that you need to go ahead, as a black community, so-called black community, Margaret Sanger said that she needed to make sure that she went into your churches. That's why your churches give out condoms and preachers preaching this foolishness now, because she came into your churches with the blessing of your pastors. And she began to preach a message of abortion, or that A word that rhymes with extortion, excuse me. That's what she preached. That's what her pulpit was used for, and the person shared their pulpit with her. And she went all over the black community and told everybody why it is that we should not be taking care of our children or even having children because it was so tough. Meanwhile, in her community, they still were having babies. It wasn't too tough for them though. And by the way, we were hooligans. You know, we were these super predator type beings. And so that's why because of persons like her and because of organizations like Planned Parenthood, that you have the highest percentage as far as percentage of children and stuff. You have the highest percentage ages 12 through 21. I said age 12 through 21 having abortions out of anybody. Now, other women and stuff, they have a lot of them and stuff too, but they don't run Planned Parenthood anywhere close to what they do for you in their communities. I'm talking about, I've talked to sisters over decades now who will tell you that some of them had 20, 30 A words around with extortion. And they get to be of a certain age and they get to realize in their belief system or in their walk or just being in women or even seeing the damage it does to their body, they realize, and then they start thinking about the fact that these were living beings. Because somebody taught them or told them, hey, they ain't nothing yet, they ain't been born. Why are you worried about them like that? How you doing, Minister Tracy? They were taught this wickedness by this system. Excuse me. They were taught all this foolishness by the system. So now here it is that you were told that everybody's birth rate is going down and that our people just want the birth rate to go down. You weren't, it's romanticized. You weren't taught that somebody came into your community and told you to start having less children. Told you that's the only way you were going to survive. Told you as a woman that no woman is great unless she doesn't have children. Now, I'm not saying that all your worth and all your value is based off of children. That's not the case. Matter of fact, the Bible says that there are some women by choice or even by calling maybe, or just by choice, take choices they've made in their life, that they will be mothers of children that are not theirs. They'll still be mothers. They'll still have that affection and stuff, but they just won't have children on their own, right? So I'm not here to tell you if you don't have children, you weren't doing the will of God. That's far from what I'm saying. What I'm telling you is what's become romanticized is the mindset that the woman that doesn't have children is better suited to take care of her responsibility for a family or her community. Right? By having less children, she's doing better. That's romanticized. Okay, volume's better on Bluetooth. Okay. Right? But that's what's been romanticized. Is that she is greater because she doesn't do something she's called to do. Right? Men is now going to, men are doing it, by the way. See, you got to realize, we just think this is one, we forget that one side affects the other. Now men are doing their best. We keep talking about men that have, I think a lot of persons haven't caught the new reality, the new prism to be looking through, or the new way to be looking at this, at what's real. Men are not looking to have babies in it. It's more, it's more like men and women don't want children. Called to be a community, called to be a nation, and don't want to actually build community and build a nation. This is dangerous. This is dangerous, beloved. For real, for real. That a lot of men and women have decided, right? And look, society has messed them up. We've seen a lot of stuff that informs us that says, well, why should we and stuff? 50% at least of marriages aren't working in the West. 75% in some places in the West are not working out. Persons are like, why am I here? Everybody's saying, that somebody gonna cheat, this and that or whatever. Everybody talks so badly about it. But then it's weird because everybody talks badly about it, but then everybody says dating is a joke too. But what is the point of dating? I'm just asking you once again, because if you're looking for dating or courting, nobody asks, what is the purpose of it? What's the purpose? It's gotten to a place where it's so bad, but nobody asks, what's the purpose of dating? What's the purpose of marriage? What's the purpose of being a husband? What's the purpose of being a wife? What's the purpose of fathers? Right? What's the purpose? What's the purpose of being all is there? Is there any purpose? But watch this. This goes to the romanticized part. We're almost finished for today, but watch this. This comes to the romanticized part at the end. Stuff has been romanticized that everything's so romantic that nothing has purpose. And that sounds weird, but I'm gonna say it again. Hopefully you catch it. Everything has become so romanticized that nothing has purpose. Because once again, look at the Greco-Roman mindset. It's about Zeus. It's about Apollos. It's about Madonna. It's about Hermes or Nike. Which, by the way, Nike literally is Hermes. They're the same person. It's about all these different things. It's about myths. It's about somebody's idea. And watch this. What are the Romans? The Romans have a belief system. Once again, it's hard to figure out who they actually are. We know they were from this little group of Latins that was between the Etruscans and the Greeks. It's difficult to talk about how they actually started, but this is what they say about themselves. This is how they see themselves. The Romans see themselves, not Kofi. This is how the Romans see themselves. So romanticized that nothing means anything. Watch this. They say, supposedly, that whole Troy, the whole story of Troy and everything, supposedly they're supposed to be persons who escaped Troy and came to the Latins. They themselves then believed that there were two brothers that came from one of these escaped persons, right? And they believed that these two brothers, Romulus and Remus, existed. That they were either, depending on how you look at it, they were either just orphans or they were raised by a she-wolf. That's what they say. I'm not telling you I'm telling you what Romans say. They say, so this is their mindset, the wolf. Whole thing, alpha wolf, blah, blah, all the stuff you hear. This is romantic. They say, then from there, one of them off the other, because they believed back then that wolves offed each other, which is not true. But that's what they believe. Just like, for example, there's no such thing as an alpha male. There's really only an alpha female, and an alpha female can't be a wolf. An alpha female would actually be a chicken because the chickens have pecking order. So the ones that peck the others into submission are considered to be alphas. That's actually what that means. Y'all don't know that, right? But anyways, so they go through this weird alpha male wolf thing that one wolf has to off the other. The wolf that off the other, or the one raised by the wolf that off the other, was Romulus. Romulus off Remus. Then he named this new city that he created after himself. And what they said, that this is when myth and reality start to actually shift a little bit from myth and start moving into the reality piece, or to what's real. They say that the city was basically a safe haven for men, and the men, there were really no women in Rome except the ones that they captured from other places and forced to be their wives. I want you to catch this now. This is misogynistic. This is the romantic view. You think that this is romantic, all the stuff that's romantic, you don't realize this is a misogynistic point of view. All right, let's go. Let's get it. You ready? All right. Now watch this. So the romantic person, the male, right, has no women there. And by the way, this is something that we saw happen against the Carthaginians. This is something that we saw happen to start the war against the Carthaginians, the Punic Wars, the so-called Punic Wars. This is where this stuff came from, right? And they would even go into other persons' cities, and they would tell them, and they would basically say, they would conquer them, and they would take their wives, and they would make them their wives. There would be a lot of persons that would go around fight. This was something that was normal. Mercenaries would do this stuff all the time. This was normal behavior for the romantic, for the Roman. So what they say is there were no men, because what happens, a lot of persons don't know, just like the United States of America is actually a prison colony. A lot of you guys don't know that. A lot of prisoners they didn't have space to put on the gallows and stuff in England. They would send them to Australia, and they would send them to the United States of America. Two of the biggest places for the Western romantic viewpoint that still exists today, right? But that's where they sent them. So that's why a lot of evil happened to natives in the same way in these places, because the same English mindset, the same romantic mindset was there. So the romantic man, right, or the romantic mindset is that the man takes women or takes them as slaves. Now the Etruscans and the Greeks are going back and forth. They're taking women, they're forcing them to stay in Rome and have their children and stuff. That's the mindset of a woman. The woman should be a slave to the Roman. And it's very interesting that the woman, a lot of our women have been taught through Stockholm syndrome to want the Roman, the romantic relationship where she's actually supposed to be a slave. Treat me however you want, just pay my bills. Right? I don't care if you honor me or love me, just make sure that you take me across the world enough. Who cares if you're what's Donald Trump's wife's name? Whatever her name is. Who cares if you're Ivanka's the daughter. Whatever his wife's name is. Who cares if you're this wife that clearly can't stand being around your husband? Hey, take it, and forgive me, I'm not trying to be sexually perverted, whatever. Melania, yeah, Melania. Take it on the chin. But you got this man that's rich and he's over the world. Who cares? That's that's the romantic mindset because they used to literally go conquer persons, take their daughters, take their wives, take their families. There's stories of it to where they would take over persons, and the men would stay there, and they would literally off all the men that they had conquered. They would go into the houses of the men's, the places that they had conquered, and they would take their families, and they would say to them, "Why don't you love me? Why don't you do this?" And she'd be like, "Well, you took my family, you took my husband. Why would I love you?" And they'd be like, "I don't care about all that. Make me food." And they would be afraid to go against them, knowing that if they did something to him, somebody gonna come in and take and off them. That's how Rome was built. Yeah, and by the way, what's that other saying about Rome? Rome wasn't built in a day. So it took a long time of them doing this to establish. Now they'll tell you in their own story that Roman men were the only ones that were originally there because those are all the escaped convicts and everything. Everybody ran away from where they were and started to build a society where they literally would take women, force them against their will to have their children, or just basically take them and say, your family's now my family, make slaves out of them, all this stuff. And then they grew and grew and grew. That's who Rome is. That's what romantic values are. That's how they look at women. So sisters, when you want somebody to be romantic, be ready for him to slap you around a little bit. I'm not trying to be even, I know it's facetious coming off that way. I'm being honest with you. If you want to be in a romantic relationship, you don't know what a Roman man is supposed to do to you. You need to study. Yeah, there are some men that treated their women with respect for sure, and usually that's going to be for the rich men that can afford to do all that anyways, because the women are going after riches. But that's how they roll. Rome wasn't built in a day, and when you're in Rome, you do as the Romans do. Brothers, if you want to go ahead and be somebody that makes it in this romanticized system, then guess what? You have to be prepared to treat your women like trash. Some of you do very well in that, but I would hope that we're coming out of that, right? Sisters, it's also Greco-Roman. A lot of you don't know that in Rome and Greece, matter of fact, if you look at the Spartans, a lot of persons don't study, you just go off of movies that other persons tell you about. But if you were to look at the actual Spartans, you would discover that, and this is something that's very, formulaic and happens automatically in Greco-Roman societies. A lot of Greek persons like this, Greek city-states, like the Spartans. In Sparta, they would have a lot of sisters because of so much war that would happen. A lot of the women would end up without husbands. They would end up without a man there because they would marry a guy, he would go to war, and he would die, and they get a payment. And then they marry another guy, he go to war, and they get a payment. They marry another guy, go to war, right? And so after a while, they wouldn't have any husbands, but they'd have a bunch of money. Sounds very similar to some things that happen today, where I don't need a man, right? But at the same time, I got a lot of stuff dealing with some of this sexual perversion and wartime situations, all that. Everybody getting paid off it. So now you get to a situation where, okay, now whenever these persons need support, who do they go to? They go to the women, right? Because the women are the ones who actually have the money, and actually, if they get behind you, they'll actually support you and stuff like that. Meanwhile, the men are dying off. Okay. Do we have men that die off early? And do we have women that have enough money and say, I don't need a man? Do we have children that are raised in the same thing and we continue the same thing to the point to where, in your Bible in Corinthians, right? Corinth, a Greco-Roman state, right? When we're dealing with Corinthians, it says in there, Paul says, if he had his way, right? He said that he would have it to where women would stop gossiping and they would not usurp authority over a man. And the way that you guys take that is Paul is saying women shut up. No, what he's saying is there's a problem that women have gotten to a place in that culture, not our, because he says in that same letter, that's not our custom. We don't deal with that. Not because we don't deal with women being out of place. No, we don't. Husbands love wives and wives love husbands. But he said in your culture in Corinth, he said you guys are so against each other, and women against men, men against women, that women who have made money and gotten to this position now, they don't even listen to men at all. They tell them they don't need them. They tell them they're trash, and so they literally treat them like trash. And he said, if it's supposed to be the way the Bible says, that a woman should not be gossiping and usurping authority like that over a man. Usurp basically means like taking over or saying that I'm on the throne. And right, so you shouldn't be getting up and saying like I rule over men because I have more money. That's the actual outlook of that scripture, by the way. So when people argue and use that on either side, use it correctly. That's what Paul's saying. Paul's saying, if I had it my way and we went by what the Bible said and not what y'all are doing, we would stop having men against women, women against men, and we would stop saying that because a man can't be rich and that he's coming up and that there's women that got money, therefore all these men ain't nothing. Doesn't that sound like what happens on social media? When you go on social media today, here's a homework assignment for you. Go on Facebook, go on YouTube, go on TikTok, type in dating, and watch all the videos and see if you don't hear men against women, women against men. Here, if you see if you don't hear, well, he don't make this much money, so he not a husband, or he can't even be looked at as a husband. See somebody talking about he don't make. Men and women say this. They don't make 250,000 a year. Then you can't date them. Then you can't date most persons that exist. How many of y'all right now making 250,000 a year? According to the world standards, you can't even date nobody. You shouldn't even be. You should never fix your mouth to say hello to somebody of the opposite sex. Well, you should always do more than just make money. I'm with you on that, or I hear you on that rather. But I'm just saying, what I'm saying is in society today, it's man against one. By the way, that's Willie Lynch. Willie Lynch told you in his letter he wants us to fight over age. He wants us to fight over color. He wants us to fight over man or male or female. He wants us to fight over plantation. That's why you say Brooklyn. No, I'm from the Bronx. No, Staten Island, Manhattan over here. You're on the plantation. But if you go, it's going to be the same thing. Paul is saying in the Bible, hey, don't romanticize this to the point to where everything gets so romanticized that nothing matters. Because now what's happened is, why would you get in a relationship if relationships don't matter? Why would you get married if marriage doesn't matter? Why would you wait for somebody to grow into a place where they can love you even more because you grew this money, this empire, whatever it is you're going to have together? Right? I'm gonna tell you right now, I've been around millionaires. I've been blessed to be around some persons doing big things with big vision, all this stuff. I've grown a lot in my life personally, financially, even though I'm not rich or whatever, but at the same time, I praise y'all that what I do, I'm able to take care of my family and take care of others, right? I've learned a lot, still learning, still growing. I'm still a baby in this, but I'm as I start toddling in this, y'all think I'm doing well now. When I start toddling, I'm crawling down. When I start toddling and messing around, when I start running, oh, y'all gonna be in trouble, right? But I say all that to say, being around some of these cats that support what we do and love on us and really care about who we are, and they teach you, and just rubbing shoulders with some of these giants and being in the room with some of these persons, right? And I see how they operate. I've learned a lot, and I've seen some millionaires. I'm gonna tell you right now, right? I'm not saying you haven't. I'm talking about, but I've been a chance to have some relationship, talk to persons, help them with their marriage, help them with stuff, and they'll tell you straight up, that helping them with their marriage meant more to them than the millions. But watch this: when they give or they do something for us, or they've helped some of y'all know who you are, who they've helped, right? When they do this stuff for us from time to time and they come through, I promise you, watch this. They'll tell you out their mouth, or I'll tell you for them. They don't even want to really identify who they are like that. But I'll tell you like this: those of them who were there for the person when they got their first million, that means so much more to them than if they were with somebody who was a millionaire. I'm gonna say that again because some of y'all missed this. Some of them were with somebody when they had nothing, and so when they saw their husband get that first meal, and they were with them, they helped them. They was there. They was in their lane. Sometimes they had to carry him. Sometimes they had to be the only one to support her. Sometimes they played cheerleader. Sometimes they were doing 15 things. He was doing 15 things. They had issues, but they stayed together. They stayed it out. When they got that first million, some of them when they got that first $1 million check, right? So, but some of them when they tell me when they got that first million, they said that's a feeling that you can't even imagine, right? And some of them had dated millionaires before and we're like, yeah, it's cool having blah, blah. But when you've been with somebody for like 15, 20, and you see that man come up or that woman come up on that first meal, they was like, it's a different, right? I've heard the stories of the brothers and sisters who were together, and they literally watched their bank account for the first time in history. They saw their bank account have 7 figures, and they literally watched. They were watching for six, and then they knew something was coming, and they saw it and they cried because they knew. A lot of y'all just think about the $1 million. That was $1 million worth of time, talent, effort, vision, energy, blood, sweat, and tears. When you make it like that together, you ain't going nowhere, right? There's another couple talked about how they had, how basically they saw the first $1 million check. They didn't even know what to do with it. You know, there's football players that get their first $1 million check or whatever, and they just frame it. They never even spend it. They have to go ask for another check because the check within itself, it means something. And it's not just only because, but for years and years, this little boy since he was 2, 3, 4 years old was learning the game, getting busted, dealing with energy, having to be the best of the best, having all his family waiting on him, this and that or whatever. The world was waiting, and every time he went out there, it was a test to see if he would be strong enough, not just to only play the game, but to win in his position so well that he would become one of the best persons to ever exist on the planet Earth to play that game. And he finally got somebody to say, "You're so great at it. Here's 7 figures." And they just cried. And they just post it. And somebody has to go to ask him like later on, like, "Hey, what happened to that million?" Because they be waiting for that million to check to cash. They're like, "What happened to that million?" And they had to say, "I'm sorry, I didn't even cash the check." It's just like this thing means something different, right? I'm here to tell you, if you're willing to go through the fire with somebody and get to that, yeah, you got to be dedicated. You got to be willing to do something else. It's not romanticized. We got to stop romanticizing this thing to where we're like looking at this as some fake deity, as some fake deist, as some fake spirit thing, right? We got to realize that this takes real order, real structure. Dude, this gonna take enemies being against you and your spouse. Do you hear what I'm saying? Like you get married, persons. Look, I'm here to tell you right now. And if you somebody who's been married and you still haven't recognized this, then you not a, you. I'm gonna let you know something. Pray about it, think about it, even if you don't believe me. Be in a marriage long enough. I promise you, you're gonna realize that there's persons that don't even like the fact that you're married. They're your family, they're your friends, they're your best friends, whatever, and they don't like the fact that you're married. I, I'm gonna say it again. Somebody need to hear it. You're gonna be around persons that can't stand the fact that you are married and mess around and get happily married. Mess around and you don't have no arguments. I'm gonna be careful with my word usage today because I can go deeper into that. But I'm just trying to tell you, a lot of y'all aren't ready. Like this is not for the faint of heart. For through sickness and health, for better or for worse, for richer or poorer, forsaking all others, till death do us part. Like you're thinking that that means once again. Remember, the Bible is not for everybody. We talked about last night in Malachi in the series where we're talking to Israel specifically. We're talking about in the kingdom. Cats that are in the kingdom are plotting or waiting for your downfall. I heard a guy named Kevin on stage last night. It was kind of funny, or maybe it was yesterday. Whenever it was, I was listening, and he was talking about how cats can't wait for you to fail. But it started off the conversation between him and this other comedian called Tony Baker. The conversation started off with them actually having a conversation about how persons can't wait for you to gain weight once you've lost it. And Tony was like, Tony's somebody who's actually, pretty skinny, been skinny for a while, is vegan and stuff. He works out a lot. Kevin on stage is trying to lose weight, but he's not really just not getting down for whatever reason. I'm not gonna say he's not doing enough because he seems to work out and stuff and trying to change his habits. It's just not working for him yet. Maybe that's his shape he's supposed to be in. He seemed pretty healthy, right, for the most part. But anyways, but he was talking about how, yeah, there's all these celebrities out here. They can't wait for you. Like when people lose weight, they be out here waiting for you to gain weight again. He was like, no shade to Jonah Hill, because he was like, I know Jonah don't like people talking about his weight, but when Jonah lost, gained the weight back, shoot, a lot of persons was like, see, I told you, right? So he said, hey, as a big guy, I kind of be, rooting for him when they do gain weight, because I'm going to be here to support them. Because he said, I'm a guy trying to lose weight. Hey, these guys at least lost some weight for a little bit. So when Jonah gains the weight back, he said, shoot, man, welcome back to the family. Jokingly, like maybe that's not something Jonah likes to hear, but he was basically making the point that a lot of persons can't wait for you to fail. And then he said, shoot, He's married to this woman named Melissa. He said, when if anything ever happens to me and Melissa, he's like, a whole bunch of persons can't wait. Because person done said that he's gay, person done said that he's down low, person done blah, blah, he's poor, they don't like each other, this and that, whatever. He said, so yeah, I go through every day. Part of what I've had to learn in social media is that persons plot your downfall. They can't wait for you. He says a very Americanized thing, a westernized thing, really, but Americanized thing, to build somebody up. You can't wait to build them up so that you can see them fall. And I'm here to tell you that there's a lot of persons that can't wait for you to, quote, fall in love, unquote, so that they can see your relationship, deteriorate. They plotting on it. They say little things in your spouse's ear. They say little things in your children's ear. They say little things to your friends and your family. You say, yeah, it's true. They're betting sites. Thank you on celebrity downfall. And I'm here to tell you that for a lot of you, watch this. I'm here to tell you something. As much as you might not want to hear this, right? We're finished. Time is up. Time is up. Okay, I can't stay on but a few more minutes. Time is up. Hear me, beloved. Watch this. Do you know that in your family, you are a celebrity marriage? For some of you. If the shoe fits weird, if it doesn't, take it off. But tell me if it doesn't sound familiar to some of you. Some of you are in families to where nobody in your family, basically, nobody in your family is married. All the dudes in your family that talk about women, they can't keep women or get women. All the women in your family that talk about dudes, they can't get a guy or keep a guy. Not even talking about a husband or wife, I'm talking about a relationship. Always upset, frustrated. I'm telling you, there's a lot of dudes who are always saying weird stuff, and when I think about it, I gotta say, wait a minute, what did they say? What did they say about women? You gotta be careful. You be talking to somebody and they just say something real quick and you hold on to it, you don't even realize 2 weeks later, wait a minute. Did they say blah blah? No, I gotta renounce that and I gotta tell them that what they said is not true because my wife and I, we gonna be here. It happens quite a bit, but nobody wants to talk about it, right? But a lot of us come from families. My family, there's sparse, right? My parents and one of my uncles was married and stuff, right? But for real, when I look at it correctly, relationships ain't really a thing, and people have been hurt or they don't know how to do stuff correctly and all that. And rather than us go to the Most High, a lot of them have turned very bitter and sour, and a lot of them don't want. A lot of them get perturbed, they get frustrated when you start talking about marriage, or when you see persons getting married, or when you see persons doing all types of stuff or whatever, trying to come together. You'll see a lot of persons get perturbed. You're like, why are you so disturbed and perturbed by this? You would think you'd be happy for the person. You would think that you'd be joyous. This is your brother. This is your sister. This is cuz. They're not happy about this. Do you know? Look. Do you know how many fathers? Like, y'all remember they used to show this stuff on television shows? You remember they used to show fathers, and they can't stand anything about these boys that are coming in. And I get it to a certain degree, but some of these fathers are waiting and plotting and can't wait to say or do anything to try and get your relationship broke up. Some of these mothers out here can't wait to say anything to get and do and have these relationships be broke up. And we don't want to hear it. Some of our brothers and our sisters who we love, everything that they're going to say about somebody is going to be something that's negative. You're the celebrity. You're the one that everybody's looking at, right? Nobody knows anything about marriage outside of what they've seen on television or social media except you. They see you and your relationship, and they're trying to romanticize it to the point to where nothing matters. And you can't go by the romantic stuff. You got to go by what's real, right? Has your wife shown you love? A love that nobody else can give, a support that nobody else can give, right? Then that's what matters. Not does she love me like somebody else's? No. If she loves me the way that Yah says, and she's gonna do what she's supposed to, that thank you for being on, Monique. Then we're gonna then she loves me. There's no other woman that I would ever want because of the love of my wife. If your husband is loving you the way he's supposed to, why would you look for any other dude? Why? Oh, he not doing what somebody else does. First of all, let's be honest. That's their lane. And some of them, that's not even their lane anyway. Stop telling me, well, if he had more money, he could be like Nick Cannon. He could be like Will Smith. He could be like Donald Trump. He could be like Jeff Bezos. You think that's real love? I thought you was searching for a real love. You think that's real? I want Babyface because he sing to me every day. Babyface was smacking his wife around. I want that boys to men love. Wanya Morris was abusive to women. And when he was with Brandy, she was underage while he was married to somebody else. I want that Lauryn Hill type love. Lauryn Hill was abused by the guy in Jamaica that she was with. Not Ziggy or not Bob Marley's son, whichever one she was with. Not him, but the other one. And then she was messed over by Wyclef Jean, who was messing with her when she was underage in Proswell. Even though the parents had said we're dependent on you to make sure that she doesn't get messed over, he was letting it happen because he was making money. Now everybody talks bad about Lauryn Hill, but Lauryn Hill is a product of that real love. Very romantic. That's why she was at least honest enough. She couldn't tell you everything, but she at least said, right? She at least said, "Girls, you know you better watch out. Some guys are only about." And then she told the truth. She said, "Guys, she's been in long enough." She said, "Guys, you better watch out. Some girls, they only about that thing." So she made it a point to tell y'all she was telling the truth. So romantic that we missing the truth right in front of us. So, anyways, time is up. Thank you so much for being on. I hope you got something out of today. It's been a little different because we've been by the shop for so long. It feels like we're not giving the exact same kind of word, which we're not. We're being led differently. But don't forget, in the evening sessions, we'll be on this evening. We'll be going back into Malachi. If you're able to do the shout out with us and listen long enough, prayerfully you'll be able to do the shout out with us and listen. We're going to go ahead and get into we're going to show some stuff, including stuff for Feast of Tabernacles, including the shirt that we're going to hope everybody can get from Brother Jermaine. If you want to get one from him, go to Jermaine Insurance. Jermaine, common spelling, Jermaine Insurance at gmail.com. Feel free to go there or get his number through us. Or if you don't have his number already, I'll try to make sure that I put it in the chat. He's got a couple different colors ready for us, and they'll come in short sleeve, long sleeve, and hoodies. There might be another thing that he has as well, but I think it's short sleeve, long sleeve, and hoodies. So if you'd like to get one, whether you're coming with us virtually or physically for Feast of Tabernacles, we'd love to be able to, please, ma'am, please, sir, for you to have one, to get one, help him to build up what he's been building. He's been doing this. He's one of the day ones with this, but even as far as his business, he's been with us doing clothing, things like that for quite some time. So if you can support, we'd like for you to be able to do so. Don't also forget about Feast of Tabernacles. I think the places are going to change. Texas is probably going to be a little earlier, and Chicago, Detroit, that area, we're probably going to have to do something for you guys a little later in the year, but we're still going to try to come up there. I can't come too late because it's winter time, so we can't come too late because when it start storming up there, it get crazy. So we'll try to figure something out. Um, or if we have to make it up next year, we have to, do a couple different things over there, or do a couple, a longer amount of stuff. Maybe do a week's worth of stuff or something up there for those of y'all who can come out or whatever. We'll try to figure that out. Maybe, anyway. But we got a lot of stuff coming up. Those on the East Coast, I'm trying to figure out 4 hours of power, where that's going to be on the East Coast. Also, those of you that are in the D.C., Baltimore area, if you guys want to try and come together and do a couple different things real quick before we get back on the road, heading back down south, we're going to try to make that work as well. So just look for that Feast of Trumpets. If you know what date that is, September 22nd, 23rd, or something like that, feel free to look that up. That'll probably be when we try to make our way over to Texas and all that. But I'll get you guys more information on that. But thank you all for being on. We appreciate you. We honor your time. We'll go ahead and do a quick shout out. If you'd like to come over to TikTok, we'll do a quick shout out. So please, ma'am, please, sir, if you can just come on and listen. Those of you who know how the shout out works, feel free to go ahead and put your information in on the screen. How you doing, bold servant? But love you all to life. You all take care. Sorry about the situation with the signal, but looks like we learned a couple different things, so I'm glad about that. We'll be on tonight. If you thought that we were supposed to have the SOC community meeting, we put it out in the Google Calendar invite. There is no SOC community meeting last night. That has been moved to the watch party tomorrow. So we'll see you guys for that tomorrow before we do the watch party and continue what we did with Joseph, King of Dreams. We'll watch that again tomorrow. Persons of all ages are more than welcome to join us in that and for that. And that'll be on Clapper. So if you're going to join us tonight, join us on Kofi _42 on TikTok or on YouTube. At 8 p.m. New York time. We're going to try and do some hashtag SOC University stuff on Patreon. So if you'd like to be able to be part of that, feel free to look out for that. Tomorrow's schedule, pretty much the same except with a little bit of added extra. 8 a.m. New York time tomorrow, live session. 10 a.m. New York time tomorrow, Shabbat service on the podcast. 11 a.m. New York time will be Shabbat school for the babies. 12:15 p.m. New York time will be a quick SOC community meeting and the watch party. 7 p.m. London time will be the meeting for those in England. 7 p.m. New York time will be the women's meeting for all the sisters. So hopefully everybody can adhere to that. We'll look for the Google Calendar invites. We'll be able to come on those schedules. We'll tell you all that stuff tomorrow. And prayerfully, we'll see you tonight. And don't forget, if you're going by the Israelite calendar, not tonight, but tomorrow evening, Saturday evening at 6 p.m. New York time, it's Rosh Chodesh Alavar, or Alavar, right? Or Alavalar, I can't recall. But Rosh Chodesh Alavalar, I believe, which is the new month, right? The new moon. So tomorrow evening and Saturday is the beginning of the new month, which means that your Friday evenings now match up as far as Shabbat for the next 4. All right. So thank you all. I appreciate you. We're gonna go ahead and do our shout out together real quick on TikTok. And once the you guys who know how the shout out works, feel free to go ahead and jump on there. I'm just gonna put a few pictures on there, including Feast of Tabernacles stuff. Also, too, don't forget every Monday now we're doing Feast of Tabernacles meetings. So please, man, please, sir, feel free to join us. Hope you enjoy the music. Hope you enjoyed the word today. Hope that you guys are actually utilizing this and enacting it. Don't just be somebody who hears it and doesn't do anything with it. Hopefully, you're actually utilizing this stuff in your life, and we appreciate you. So I'm going to go ahead. We're going to get the music started, and we'll have some stuff popping up on the screen. So pay attention to the screen if you can on TikTok for the shout out. But thank you all again. Tadav Ma'ashabachim. Thank you, family, for being on with us. Thank you for being Tisata'ik, at Yechad the righteousness of Israel. Thank you for being in Radach Shalom in the kingdom of heaven. And we will talk to you guys. If not tonight, if I don't see you tonight, I'll see you tomorrow, 8 a.m. Remember, Saturday is a little shorter, so but we'll see you. And thank you all for being on and joining us all over the world. So thank you again. Appreciate you. As always, it's been, we give our honor and praise to the Most High. We give our praise and honor to him for my wife, the Honorable Amma, who lives a life that's able to be honored. As always, you can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, our website, and Pinterest. And we honor you guys today. Thank you for this word. And we say, as always, to remember that you are loved, you're necessary, you're majestic, you're fearfully and wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, early Shabbat Shalom to you, Shalom to some others, and